There was also health agencies, mental health. There's just a whole plethora of agencies.
Sir Keir Starmer continues to insist the UK won't get involved in the war in Iran. He's called for the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, but says Britain won't help America to clear it of Iranian mines. The US blockade has begun. Speaking outside the White House, President Trump has updated reporters on the conflict.
We've been called this morning by the right people, the appropriate people, and they want to work a deal. They would like to work a deal. We don't need other countries, frankly, but they've offered their services. We'll let it be known probably tomorrow.
Has the blockade started, sir?
Yeah, started, 10 o'clock.
America's NATO allies, including Britain and France, are refusing to join the US blockade of the Strait, but Cabinet member Nick Thomas-Symonds has told Tonight with Andrew Marr that hasn't put the so-called special relationship at risk.
It remains fundamentally important, obviously, to this government, and it is also important to stress, Andrew, and I see this day to day in my work at the Cabinet Office, that it is a relationship, is a deep and special relationship that is functioning day to day, whether that is in terms of sharing military bases, whether that is in terms of sharing intelligence.
Energy prices, particularly those of petrol and diesel, continue to rise as the Strait of Hormuz remains closed. The CEO of Energy UK, Dara Vyas, told Andrew Marr drilling oil and gas out of the North Sea would increase supply and give us more resilience.
Probably good long term for jobs and skills. We need to, create new jobs in clean power industries for offshore workers, and more time to do that and transition would be good. And it's also a fact that you'd get more money into the Treasury. I think it is important to recognise, though, doing that doesn't result in cheaper bills for households in the UK.
Donald Trump has deleted an AI-generated image he shared yesterday, portraying him as a Jesus-like figure. It had been widely criticised, even by some religious conservatives who normally support the US president. A former Arsenal footballer has been in court to deny 2 new allegations of rape. Thomas Partey is accused of attacking a woman in London twice on the same day back in December 2020. He's also previously pleaded not guilty to 5 other rape charges. 2 people have been arrested on suspicion of murdering a 16-year-old boy in Peterborough. The teenager was stabbed near a shopping centre last night. More than 100 fans took advantage of Surrey's first Work from the Oval week, which encourages home workers to watch top-flight cricket at the stadium while using it as an office. The county's opened the doors to remote employees this season, installing desks in sections of the terraces and upgrading to ultra-fast Wi-Fi at the ground. The match with Leicestershire finished in a draw. In the city, the FTSE 100 closed down 18 points at 10,583. The pound buys $1.35 and €1.15. The LBC weather: showers will ease tonight. There'll be patchy fog and frost forming in places. Cloudy and windy in the southwest with a low of 1 degree. Windy with rain again in the southwest tomorrow. Dry elsewhere with light winds and spells of sunshine and a high of 15 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Tim Humphrey.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Iain Dale.
Hello, a very good evening. It's 7:04 on LBC. Welcome to the programme. Now, as you know, the local election campaign is well underway. We intend to do quite a few phone-ins between now and May the 7th with representatives from the different political parties. And we're kicking off tonight with the leader of the Liberal Democrats, Ed Davey, who joins me. It's a long time since we've done this, so thank you for coming in.
It's great to be here. Ed, Ian, even. You're Ian Ahmed.
What did I say?
Doesn't matter.
Right. Well, look, we're going to use most of the hour with calls and texts from our listeners.
Sure.
So let's get right into it with James in Regent's Park, who is on the line. James, good evening. What would you like to ask Ed?
Good evening. I'd like to ask him, why don't he think we should be involved in clearing the Straits of Hormuz?
Right.
So I didn't quite catch that.
Why don't you think this country should play a part in getting the Strait of Hormuz back open?
James, I do think we should, but I'm not convinced we should do it with Donald Trump. I think what the Prime Minister actually announced today, that there's going to be a summit of colleagues, allies, partners, not just European, but in the Gulf, and no doubt others, Commonwealth perhaps, to discuss how we can work together. Obviously, first of all, using diplomatic routes, because that obviously is the best if you can do that. But ultimately, we might have to work with Iran and others to try to keep that strait open.
So you're happy to work with Iran, but not Trump?
No. Well, you have to, unless you want to get fired at by Iran, you're going to have to talk to them, right? You don't want our ships fired at. And what the Prime Minister is really clear is we need the ceasefire. I think working with Donald Trump at the moment is really not the right thing to do. He went into this reckless, idiotic war without consulting anybody. Iran has behaved appallingly. Let's be really clear. It's a dreadful regime. The attacks it's made on other countries around the Gulf, our partners, our allies, have been quite shameful. But Israel's actions in Lebanon have been shameful too. So all these three countries have been involved in this war, have behaved outrageously. And that, I think, is why it's right that we've kept out of the war. But we do need the ceasefire, and we do need the Strait of Hormuz to be open. How we do that is the question. It's clear that Donald Trump has moved away from that. He originally was talking about putting US Navy in there and decided that wasn't a very clever idea. He's pulled away. And I think that shows that there are risks. So you've got to really approach this calmly and thoughtfully. And I think working with our allies is the thing that we've argued for.
But the United States is our key ally, and really, since the Second World War, always has been. Now, yes, there is an erratic leader of the United States at the moment. But, I mean, you have been unique among party leaders in this country. I mean, I suppose, bring Zach Polanski into this, but you've been critical of Donald Trump right from the start. You haven't wanted really Britain to engage in the way that Keir Starmer has. Now, you could say, well, I've been proved right, and I think in some ways you possibly have. But is it in the long-term interests of this country to essentially send the United States to Coventry, if I can put it like that, while Donald Trump is president? I mean, there are long-term consequences for that, aren't there?
Yeah, I mean, the whole situation is so sad and tragic because, like you, I think, Ian, I've been a long-term supporter of the UK-US relationship. It's critical on so many levels, and it saddens me that we have an incumbent at the White House who doesn't respect our country, insults our country. But I think it was quite predictable. Now, let's be clear, there are lots of American politicians in both Republicans and the Democrats and in the states and the governorships who we can work with, and Donald Trump won't be there forever. But you have to call a spade, and I thought the way he campaigned to become president for the second time showed the colour of his money, and the fact that he imposed trade tariffs on our country, harming our industry, a close ally, and then all the category of things he's done so awfully, whether it's not helping Ukraine properly, wanting to take Greenland from Denmark, a NATO ally, then of course what we've seen in Iran. And I think we have been proved right, but I think it was predictable. That's what I'd say. And both on the economy, on defence, he has sadly, very sadly, moved away from traditional American positions that have previously been adopted by both Republican and Democrat presidents. I don't know if James is still on the line. I don't know what he thinks about Donald Trump, whether he thinks it's easy to work with him, because I'm afraid I think it's very difficult. He's so unpredictable.
James, do you want to come back?
Yes, I would like to come back. Do you think to really trust Iran to get rid of their nuclear arsenal? That was Trump's main point for going to war. Do you really believe that, and their ballistic missiles?
Well, really important point, because I think the Iranian regime is dreadful. For example, my party has long called for the IRGC to be prescribed as terrorists. But if you go back to the history of Iran trying to get nuclear weapons, there was a very strong deal that Obama had agreed to with the support of the UK, which prevented them getting nuclear weapons. Unfortunately, even though that deal had been monitored closely by independent people, Donald Trump rips it up, and then he bombs them. And I just think you just got to look at the history. This is not the way to stop Iran getting nuclear weapons. There was a way that was being successful. He undermined it, and we are where we are. And I think it's a tragedy.
Okay, James, thank you. Will in Wrexham has another question. Hi, Will.
Hi, Iain. Hi, Sir Ed. You okay?
Yeah, hi.
I'm a bit confused. I know, Sir Ed, you're a Christian, and I'm just befuddled, totally befuddled, why Trump impersonated as Jesus Christ today on his Truth Social, and I was just absolutely flabbergasted. I'm not a Christian myself, but if I was a man of faith, I'd be starting to question his integrity now, because I think, I said this on a lot of people's shows, Jeremy Biden included, that I think he's going totally nuts, isn't he? He's losing the plot, I think, isn't he?
Well, if you're watching, this is the depiction that Donald Trump generated on AI of himself as Jesus Christ. Ed, I don't know if you've seen that. I have seen it, yeah. He did subsequently delete it. But is he going nuts?
But he always deletes things, doesn't he? He always puts things up and then he deletes it because he has a memory lapse and thinks, should I post that? Is that inappropriate?
Well, Will, thank you for the question. You're right, I am a Christian. I'm an Anglican and attend St Andrew's in Surbiton. But I have to say I was just shocked by that. I mean, Donald Trump seems to find a way of shocking us more and more each time he does something. Think he's gone as bad as he could get, and then he just gets worse. That was offensive to me. But I was shocked because there is a lot of Christians in America, they're often called the Christian right, who've been part of his MAGA coalition. And
But they seem to forgive him for all this.
No, actually, they've been really critical. There's a lot of Catholic Americans and the Christian right who've been really critical of Donald Trump. And that's why, Will, you're absolutely right. He's taken this tweet down. Now, you pose an interesting question about whether he's losing the plot. The question is, did he ever have the plot, I guess, in the first place? But, I mean, his behaviour is erratic, isn't it? We were discussing this before we came on air. The American media basically argued that Joe Biden had dementia, was losing it. But I mean, they've been far less focused on the behaviour of Donald Trump, which does seem erratic.
Okay, well, let's cut to the chase here. Do you think Donald Trump is fit to continue as American president? Would you urge his colleagues to invoke the 25th Amendment?
Well, I'm not a medical practitioner and I haven't done those tests on him, of course. Let me just make that caveat. However, his actions and his behaviour are not in the interest of America, in my view. I see that a lot of American politicians, including people who've been sympathetic with him in the past, saying that. And there was a lot of debate, wasn't there, last week about invoking the 25th Amendment. And for those listeners who aren't aware of that, it's essentially in the US Constitution that if people believe that the US president is not fit to govern, you can invoke the 25th Amendment and he could be removed. I don't think it's ever happened before. But it is one of those safeguards. I wouldn't be surprised if people are talking about it on Capitol Hill. I really wouldn't.
Thank you very much for that.
Thanks,
Will. A follow-up text question from Judy. Are you just as bad as Trump when it comes to name-calling? In the Commons last week, you called, it can't have been last week, but you called President Trump a dangerous and corrupt gangster.
I did say that today.
That was today, was it?
Yeah. Well, listen, I'm calling an American president the way I think he's behaving. I'm afraid there's nothing, Judy, that I've been doing that's at all measures up to what Mr. Trump has done with his Truth Social, so-called.
But to call him a corrupt gangster?
Well, I think it stands up to analysis. I mean, well, first of all, look at his corrupt behaviour. Whether it's with some of the Bitcoin stuff he does, whether the argument that there's insider trading, which has widely been reported.
I should just point out that he's suing the BBC for libelous comments.
Well, I hope he doesn't sue the LBC.
Well, that's exactly where I was heading.
So your lawyers are already on the phone, are they? Well, I wouldn't be the first person.
We'll pass it on to you.
Yeah. I wouldn't be the first person. So, Judy, listen, I'm sorry if you disagree with my criticism of Donald Trump. I think there's an awful lot of people who do agree with me that Donald Trump is not a good president or a friend of this country. And, I just worry that there are politicians in our country like Nigel Farage who seem to think Donald Trump is the bee's knees and want his type of politics.
He seems to have called on him a bit lately, to be fair.
Yeah, well, maybe because he sees that lots of his supporters no longer like Donald Trump. But, I mean, he has a track record, to be fair, of supporting Trump through thick and thin. Now maybe he's beginning to wake up. However, he still has lots of Donald Trump-style politics. So, he may have decided that it wasn't right to continue to support him in Iran. But you remember at the get-go, he was saying that the UK should follow Donald Trump in this idiotic war. So I'm afraid Nigel Farage has not got much of a leg to stand on, in my view.
Right, more questions to Sir Ed Davey over the next 45 minutes. 0345 6060 973. You can WhatsApp that number or you can text 84850. And there are subjects other than Donald Trump and Iran. Maybe even, I mean, let me be a bit dangerous here. Maybe something to do with the local elections.
Oh, that'd be good. That'd be good.
16 minutes past 7.
Weekdays from 7 a.m.
This is a shambles.
Straight to the point.
How was that allowed to happen?
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
Show some evidence, Minister.
Listen on our free Global Player app or the LBC app. Download it now from your app store. LBC.
It's like a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder how I keep from going under.
Get that Toyota electric feeling with the all-new, all-electric Toyota Urban Cruiser. Available with 0% APR representative and £1,500 deposit contribution. And save £1,500 with the Toyota Electrified Saving. Visit your nearest Toyota centre. Price from $29995. Available on Toyota PCP when financed through Toyota Financial Services by 30th of June 2026. Optional final payment indemnities may be required. See website conditions apply.
We're just being held here briefly.
Stuck waiting again.
Tell me about it. I've spent all morning trying to get through to my GP.
Oh, I'd ditch that stress and join Benenden Health. They've got a 24/7 GP helpline. No waiting rooms, no sitting around.
Really? Sounds like a great service, unlike this one.
We're just about to get moving again.
Press play on your health with the 24/7 GP helpline and much more. All for less than £16 per person per month. Search Benenden Health. Fee reviewed periodically. T's and C's apply. Qualifying periods apply for some services. UK only. Visit benenden.co.uk.
Hey you! Yeah, you! What would you like from your investing app? 6% interest on your ISA, a free share of your choice, or no commission on stocks and ETFs up to €100,000 per month? With XTB, you get all of the above all in one app, the XTB app. Get your free share and start investing with XTB today. XTB, where your money works.
Capital at risk. Investment values can rise or fall. Limited free stock availability. 2% ISA rate boost for 90 days. New clients only. T's and C's apply.
Iain Dale on LBC.
17 minutes past 7 on LBC. Sir Ed Davey is here, the leader of the Liberal Democrats. He's MP for Kingston and Surbiton. Chris is in neighbouring Richmond. Hello, Chris.
Hello, Ed. Hello, Ian. As a Lib Dem member, Ed, given the Greens are quasi-Marxists, Reform are a shambles full of failed Tories, why on earth are we not doing better as a party in the opinion polls, Ed?
Well, I certainly recognise your characterisation of some other parties. But, I've just come on what I've called my Red Wall tour. I've been up to Newcastle and Hull and Sheffield and Manchester and Stockport and Birmingham. And I've seen party members and activists in really good heart. They're out there campaigning, getting great responses. And Chris, the reality is I'm about winning. I'm not so worried about the polls. I'm about winning. And for the last election, I don't know if you did this to me, and you probably didn't because you're too wise. But I'd go on programme and they say, well, your poll rating, is only 12%. And then we got our best result in terms of the number of seats for 100 years.
But that was in part down to Reform, wasn't it? Because they took... Not really. In all the seats that you won, they got between 6,000 and 10,000 votes, largely from the Conservatives. But that allowed you through the middle.
You look at the number of seats that the Reform vote was bigger than the majority, wasn't that many. And if you look at local election results, last May we had a great set of local elections. The first time we'd ever beat Labour and the Conservative in a May, both of them at the same time in the May local elections. And if you look at the council by-elections across the country, Chris, we won more than any political party, and we were the only one party regularly beating Reform. We won more council by-elections in 2025 than Tories, Labour and Green put together. So it's winning that matters, right?
And you also have to take part. Let's look at the recent election in Gorton and Denton by-election, where in previous years you would have put up a really good fight there and probably won it. You got 1.9% of the vote.
Yeah, well, you're right. We didn't actually put up a bit of a fight this time. For this reason, I believe in putting our resources where we think we really can win. In the last Parliament, there were a number of by-elections, but we only really went for 4, and we won 4. Because, you'll know this, and I'm sure Chris understands this too in Richmond, resources aren't limited. And the Greens were very well placed. I actually thought at one stage Labour might win it, but I was wrong. The Greens won it. I was pleased that Reform didn't win it. I'll be frank with you. But we were never in the shout in that constituency. We talked to local people, local Lib Dems, and they said, look,
But when Lord Reynard was running your campaigning organisation back in the day, he would have been salivating at that seat.
No, I don't know. I haven't spoken to him about it. But what I can tell you is that our top campaigners, who got our best result, along with myself, our team, our best result in the last year election for 100 years, they looked at it, and their strong advice was, listen, we've got local election to fight, but Scotland, we've got Wales, we really need the resources there. This isn't one we can win.
I mean, I think, and Chris, I'll come back to you in a second on this, I think you are going to do much better in these local elections, maybe not to the extent of last year, but your opinion poll rating in the national polls is still relatively low. What do you put that down to?
Well, I mean, it depends which poll, of course.
They're all showing the same thing. Well, somewhere between 9 and 12%.
Well, actually, I'd say 9 and 14. But I'm not going to have a big argument about the actual number. I tell you what, though, we're polling more than we did 4 years ago. And when we got our best result for 100 years in the general election, sorry to say it 3 times, but it's true, we were at 12%. So sometimes people get focused as if we're in a PR system. We're not. We're in a first past the post system. And therefore, you put your resource, your effort in areas where you can win. And I think you're right, actually. I think we will do well in May. I think in the southern part of England, for example, we'll win Tory councillors. We'll beat Tory councillors in places like Surrey and Sussex and Hampshire and Hertfordshire and Huntingdonshire. I think against Labour in London, I think we'll do really well in places like Merton and Southwark and Lambeth and Camden and Brent and Ealing and Haringey and other boroughs are available. I think we'll do well in Birmingham. I think we'll do well in Newcastle.
We get the message.
So I go into these elections really confident that we'll do well in the English local elections, and I think we'll do well elsewhere.
All right. Well, Chris, what's the answer to your own question?
I think there are concerns about the leadership in terms of there's no direction in the party. I think, look, I've got a fantastic MP in Madeira. I think our council is very well run, and I'd vote for them and knock on doors from that. My worry is, nationally, there is no strategy, and I seriously worry for my children's future if Nigel Farage gets anywhere near number 10. And I think you've done a great job challenging him and Trump, but I think there's something more we need to do. I don't know what that is, but I'm worried that we're going to, by the back door, end up with a Reform government, and that would be catastrophic for this government.
Well, Chris, let me agree with you. It would be catastrophic. You're absolutely right there. But I don't agree with you that there's no direction. I think we've led the way on Trump. In fact, Iain said so early in this interview, we've led the way on arguing, and you won't agree with me on this, Iain, that we should lean more into our European relationship, where the party has led on that with the customs union proposal I put forward on the NHS, which is always a very big issue. We're literally the only party in Parliament pushing the government on the NHS, whether it's on GPs or on NHS dentists or on A&E corridor care, with a plan very much focused on social care and care. So Chris, I mean, I'd be happy to meet you sometime and chat to you about it, but we have a really clear strategy. And let's take one other issue, cost of living, right? With Iran putting up the price of petrol, the pumps, diesel, the pumps, we're the only party saying, look, the chances of getting a windfall in tax revenue from higher oil and gas prices, she should be playing that back, recycling it back to families and pensioners who are hard-pressed, paying these higher petrol, diesel prices, and people on buses. So we should reduce the cap on bus fares from £3 to £1, cut rail fares by 10%. And you could afford that just from the higher, the windfall revenue she's getting. Now, I think his leadership, to be honest, Chris, in a cost of living crisis, showing a way forward. And I wouldn't be surprised if the government eventually adopts our strategy.
But there are some of your MPs, and this happens in all parties, it's not exclusive to the Lib Dems at all, but there are some MPs in your party who I think reflect what Chris is saying. They don't feel that there's a strategy, that there's a retail offering to the electorate, that where with Farage, you kind of know what you're going to get. With Labour, well, we thought we knew what we were going to get. And you can come up with all these sort of different individual policies, but is there any coherence there? They want to see more of a strategy.
Well, There is coherence, there is a strategy. But listen, like you said, this isn't unusual. Other parties, I think, are having a far harder time. I'd say we're the most united party in Parliament. We're not losing MPs to reform like the Tories, and there's not an imminent leadership election like Labour. But anyway... Listen,
are you likely to gain MPs? I mean, are you talking to maybe some Tories?
Well, if we were, obviously couldn't say on this show yet. But let me go back to the point. I know, you get elected, you work really hard, you're really ambitious, you get to Parliament, and you think you can change the world. And regrettably, our system gives all the power to the government, and the opposition is pretty frustrating. Being in opposition, I have to tell you, I've been in opposition quite a lot. It is really frustrating, and I get colleagues that are restless. I'm restless like them. However, we've got a fantastic bunch of MPs, and I think just as we were the surprise at the last general election, I gave you this prediction, Chris, we will be the big surprise of the next election. We're going to win far more seats than people think.
I think a lot of people think the Greens are going to be the big surprise at the next election.
Well, they may be, but they're not going to win anywhere near as many seats as we did. There was an MRP poll the other day, with the current polling rating, it showed us winning, I think, 3 or 4 times as many seats as the Greens. And I think on those polls, and I think, frankly, we'll win 7 or 8 times.
First time I've heard you defend first past the post.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm just saying what these independent people say.
All right, Chris, thank you. Paul in Streatham says, personally, I'd never vote Lib Dem, but I know a lot more liberal-minded friends would if Ed stopped his continual clown act and came up with a serious policy platform like they had back in 2010.
Right, well, thanks, Paul, for that ringing endorsement. Let me say that during the general election, when I did the odd bungee jump, and fell off a few paddle boards, what happened was the cameras came to have a look, and I was able to speak direct to the camera about Liberal Democrat policies on everything from sewage to mental health to the cost of living and so on. And we looked at it compared to other elections. We got more coverage of Liberal Democrat policies and ideas than we had previously. So we put forward a serious policy programme, Paul, and indeed we weren't just about those visuals. I did my PB where I talked about my son and my life as a carer. When I launched our manifesto, we were just full of very serious policies, focused on the economy, focused on the NHS, focused on the environment, sewage, and so on. As I say, it's the 4th time I've said this. We got our best result for 100 years.
Well, you did. But lightning shouldn't strike twice, should it? I mean, you can't pull off that stunt again.
Well, I will keep you in suspense on that. But, I've been on my Red Wall tour I talked about across the North and the Midlands. And, I played chess in a park. When we launched the campaign...
that was one of your less fun ones.
I won the game. It's great fun. Did you play chess? Did you play chess?
Actually, I can play chess.
I don't know. Paul plays chess. It's great fun.
I usually play chess with people like you in interviews. Right. Max in Hereford says, how willing are you to go into coalition?
Well, look, Max, it's a bit early in the Parliament.
Good, very well worded question, that.
Well, I'm sure it is well worded, and thank you for your question, Max. Listen, my job is to win as many seats for the Liberal Democrats as possible. If we do that, we'll not only stop Farage getting into number 10, which is obviously a big motivator for many of our supporters, but actually you get more great Liberal Democrat MPs putting forward our policies, and I'm determined to lead the party into the next election to an even better result than we achieved last time. And I think you will find that Liberal Democrats will potentially be in power after the next election.
In power? How?
Well, by winning lots of MPs. And
you don't think you can win the next election with the majority? Obviously, you'd like to, but that's not realistic.
Listen, sometimes people have asked me this question. Do I want to be in government? Of course, I want to be in government. People have said, "Are you a candidate prime minister?" Of course, I'm a candidate prime minister. I'm leader of the 3rd largest parliamentary party in the Commons, and I'm ambitious for the party. And that's a quite reasonable proposition, I'd have thought.
But it's a reasonable question for Max to ask, and with respect, you haven't answered it.
Well, because I'll tell you why, Max, and I am not answering the question, let me be frank with you, but for this reason. I've been around politics a long time, and the Liberal Democrats a long time, and I've seen a lot of my predecessors as leader get engaged in this debate about, which party, what's deal, blah, 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 blah. And what happens is they are talking not about the voters and their concerns, they're talking about doing deals, and I don't think that's the right. And I've also noticed, I'll be frank with you, Ian, and indeed Max, that it takes it off the ball of actually being successful and winning seats and winning votes. And at the last Parliament, I refused to do this, to speculate, and we did pretty well.
But is your top priority stopping Nigel Farage from becoming Prime Minister? Because there may well be only one way to do that, and that is to come, maybe not a full coalition, but maybe to come to some arrangement with other parties to prevent that happening. I mean, I don't think that. I think you can go that far to speculate about that.
Look at what happened in the last election. So. Obviously, my job was to win as many Liberal Democrat MPs as we could, and we did. But it was also to get rid of the Conservatives from government. They'd been in government for quite a while. I think by even independent people might have said that they hadn't done a terribly good job, and they needed to get out. And it was an anyone but Conservative election, and we played our hand, I think, really well on that. The next election, I think, could be quite interesting because it could be an anyone but Reform election in parts of the country. In other parts, it could be an anyone but Labour election, because I think Keir Starmer, unless he completely improves his act, is not going down terribly well on the doorstep, I find. And we need to therefore take that as a sort of two things: a moral responsibility to beat Nigel Farage, and I mean that really seriously. It's a moral responsibility to win to beat Nigel Farage, but for my party, a historic opportunity where Labour is failing, the right wing is split. That's why I'm very optimistic about our chances.
Julie says, does reform live rent-free in your head? Because that seems to be all you talk about.
Well, I've been talking
apart from Donald Trump.
Well, I've talked about a lot of other things, but you're welcome to your view. Listen, I think he has to be called out. I think he's dangerous. I think he's dangerous to our democracy and to our country. I think he wants to import Trump-style politics into the UK. And I think that would damage our health service. I think it would damage our economy. And I think it would damage our democracy.
When did you last speak to him, personally?
Nigel Farage. Well, years ago. I think it was in a TV studio. I mean, a long time.
Because he's quite an affable guy, isn't he?
Sure he is, but it doesn't mean I have to... Well, listen, our partner, he's got all these heavies around him all the time. You've got all the security people.
Right, more questions to Sir Ed Davey right up until 8 o'clock, 0345 6060 973. You're listening to LBC. I'm Iain Dale. It's 7:32, time for the news headlines with Tim Humphrey.
A report has found the Southport killings could and should have been prevented. The inquiry chairman says Axel Rudakabana's attack in July 2024 wouldn't have happened if his parents had reported his increasingly erratic behaviour and state agencies hadn't failed in their duties. Donald Trump's claiming the Iranians have phoned and want a deal. The US blockade of the Strait of Hormuz is underway. Britain has not taken part, something Lib Dem leader Sir Ed Davey has told Iain he supports.
And what the Prime Minister is really clear is we need the ceasefire. I think working with Donald Trump at the moment is really not the right thing to do. He went into this reckless, idiotic war without consulting anybody.
Former Arsenal midfielder Thomas Partey has appeared in court accused of further counts of rape. He's pleaded not guilty to 2 attacks on the same woman in London on a single day in December 2020. LBC weather, showers easing tonight, patchy fog and frost forming in places, cloudy and windy in the southwest, and a low of 1 degree.
This is LBC.
Have you ever felt like your investment advisor is giving you an off-the-shelf retirement plan? That they just want to put you in a box? But who wants that? At Fisher Investments UK, we never put you in a box. We create a plan that's just right for you because it's only right for us if it's right for you. Fisher Investments UK. Retirement advice that's as individual as you are. Learn more at fisherinvestments.co.uk. Investing involves the risk of loss. Fisher Investments UK is regulated by the UK Financial Conduct Authority.
Imagine your dream holiday made possible by comparing cheap flights on Kayak. Walking on an unspoilt goes-on for miles beach on the Sardinian coast, plunging into the splendour of an idyllic lagoon in Greece. Ah, yes, this is the life. All you have to do is actually book it. Don't holidays. Use Kayak to compare prices from hundreds of travel sites and airlines to find your dream deal. Search Kayak and go see for yourself.
Experience. It's knowing the difference between a good deal and, well, a great deal. That's why right now you can get a £250 gift card when you take out Saga Health Insurance. You get 24/7 GP access whenever you want it, and the freedom to choose your preferred private hospital with your own room should you need it. Search Saga Health Insurance for a quote today. Start a new policy before the 28th of May. New customers over 50 only. Terms and conditions apply.
Iain Dale on LBC. Text 84850.
7:35. So Ed Davey is here taking your calls. Let's take a text question from Jim, who says, what would Ed do to stop the Iran war hitting all of us financially?
Great question, Jim. Well, first of all, we do need to have the ceasefire hold and the Straits of Hormuz opened. That's obviously the most important thing. But the truth is, it's going to be hitting our country already with what has happened. A, because we've seen the oil price and gas prices go up. B, because some of the infrastructure out there is being really damaged. It'll take a while to replace and to repair. And it's going to hit food prices. That's not often talked about, actually, because some of the fertilizer coming through the Strait has not been there. And so farmers are really, really worried as well. So you're absolutely right to ask that question, Jim. So beyond trying to get the ceasefire to become permanent and the Straits open, I think we need to help people now. So one thing we have argued for, and I think I touched on this earlier, is the chance is getting a bit of a windfall in higher tax from the energy profits levy, from gas revenues and from VAT on fuel. And a lot of people in the city have estimated it's probably worth about £8 billion a year in extra revenue. So we've said let's have an emergency 3-month package using £2 billion of that. And we use
Which
that.
other countries? Australia, I think, has done that.
Well, other countries have done it. Italy, Spain, India, some states.
So why
in
do you
America.
think Rachel Reeves hasn't done it?
I don't know why, because it seemed to me obvious. I mean, A, because people are suffering. We're suggesting take 10p off fuel duty, which would translate to 12p a litre off petrol and diesel. It won't completely reverse the increase, but it will help. We've suggested the bus cap, which has gone up to £3, comes down to £1, and 10% off rail fares. That is affordable just from the windfall. And I think it would help people struggling. I think it would give a boost to the economy. It will be temporary because hopefully oil prices will come down and we can revert to.
I mean, given that diesel prices were £1.40 a litre when this all started, and now they're up to £1.90. I mean, knocking 10p off or 12p off is going to be a sort of bit insignificant, isn't it? Why not say let's slash it to say 160, so there would still be an increase, but people would really feel that because the poorest households spend far more on petrol and energy bills, don't they?
Well, they do.
Proportionally.
They do. And Iain, I looked at those sorts of ideas because I wanted to go as far as we could. Just can't afford it. So what we put forward is actually responsible financially because you're using the extra money the Chancellor's getting as a windfall. She didn't expect it. I think that should be recycled and given back to people, back to businesses. And I think, it's not going to solve everything. But I have to say, if you took the bus fare cap from £3 to £1, you'd have a lot of people using the bus.
Do you feel that Rachel Reeves is effectively profiteering in this crisis?
I fear she might be. Obviously, we've got to see the books, but from what the analysts in the city are saying, she's getting a load in and she could give it out. And, I think there's bad economics from the Chancellor here, because if you did what we're proposing, you would help the economy. You'd also take quite a bit off inflation. The OBR reckons that what we're proposing, well, they haven't analysed us, but what the impact on petrol and diesel price would be to take about 0.4% off inflation. That would mean interest rates would be slightly lower, and therefore the cost of managing government debt would be lower. So there's a sort of virtuous circle if you do what we're proposing, which hopefully would help people like Jim.
Now, you talk a good game on the cost of living, but do you know which political party has put up council tax more than any other, on average, over the country?
Yeah, well, you're going to say it's my party, but let me explain why. A lot of the councils we've taken control of were formerly run by the Conservatives. Quite a few of them were either bankrupt or near bankruptcy. Take Woking, for example, dreadful council. The Tories put the debt up by over £1 billion. I mean, dire straits, and we got elected to put that right. And I could take you to other councils where we're having to clear up the Conservative mess. And that has meant, regrettably, a little bit more on council tax. But here's the thing. Council tax is going up almost whatever council whatever political party you're being run by. And it's partly because two big things haven't been dealt with. One is social care. You and I have talked about this before. We all know about it in politics in Westminster. No one does anything about it. And also special education needs and disability. Those two things alone are the biggest parts of the budgets of most councils.
I get that, but councils controlled by Labour, the Conservatives, Reform, I think even the Greens have some councils that they control now. They're all facing the same challenges. But the fact is, Liberal Democrat councils put council tax up more than other parties do. And that's not a good message to send to the electorate in these elections.
That's not the case. That's not been the case every year. It really hasn't.
Nobody cares about previous years. They care what they're paying now and what they're going to be paying next year.
And to be fair, I've addressed the question. And the question is, we have just taken over, because we had some really good local election results in the last 2-3 years, we have taken over some failing Conservative councils. And they've been in a financial mess, and the Conservatives had failed to address them. And you've got to be responsible.
But you could have cut spending.
Well, we've done both in many areas. We find lots of efficiencies. I could take you to my own council. When we took over it last time, it was near bankruptcy. We've managed the resources really well, we've made some big efficiencies, and that is good, competent, day-to-day, well-managed council.
So, will you give a commitment here and now that in the financial year 2027 to 2028? Your councils will not put up council tax as much tax as the other parties.
I hope they won't, but I can't give that commitment. We're talking about no, it would be silly. And you look at what Nigel Farage used to give that commitment, didn't he? And he fell on his uppers. He said he was going to cut council tax, and they put him up. Nigel Farage was completely outrageous in what he said on interviews like this about council tax. He made these commitments, and he ought to have known he couldn't keep them. And guess what? They failed. Okay. Reform kept putting up council tax when they went on a manifesto of cutting council tax. That was outrageous. We're not going to make false commitments. What we will say to people is we will run your council as well as we possibly can. And when we take over failing Tory councils, we'll take tough decisions.
Victor is in Buckhurst Hill. Hello, Victor.
Hello, good evening there. Good evening, Mr. Davey.
Hi there.
My question is to you is, I often hear you in Prime Minister's Question Times and saying about the Tories in 14 years of being in power and what they left the country in. But 5 years of those, you were in coalition with them. Do you seem to forget that? Do you, that you were in power with them, making some of the policies that they were bringing in at the time, or is this just another typical case of people in people in Parliament amnesia?
No, well, Victor, thank you for your question. You're fair enough. I do attack the Tories quite a lot because I think they had a dreadful record. But to look at the dates, we were in government between 2010 and 2015. Then we left government, and the Conservatives governed alone for 9 years. So the 9 years prior to the last general election, it was Conservative-only government, and they did have a dreadful record. But going back to the coalition, let me tell you, let's take tax. It was a Liberal Democrat policy to take the poorest out of tax. We did that. We increased the tax allowance significantly, took millions of low-paid workers out of tax. What have the Conservatives done? And actually, Labour's copied them. They've frozen that tax allowance and dragged lower-paid people back into tax. So I'm very happy to discuss our record on things like that.
But you supported austerity, something which you now criticise.
Well, hold on a minute. We took some tough decisions, that's right. We didn't always agree with the Conservatives, but as I've just said, we took the lowest paid out of income tax. I think it was the right thing to do, the fair thing to do. It made the tax system fairer. I'm just really, really sad that that progress we'd made for people who are struggling, working and not getting a fair return, that's been reversed under the Conservatives who've pushed up tax so much.
But generally, you actually got on quite well with them, didn't you? Most Liberal Democrat cabinet ministers that I know, when you talk to them about their experience of being in the coalition government, they think it was a positive experience generally. And I've always wondered why, when you got 75% of your 2010 manifesto's proposals through, which I think any political party would be quite happy with, the coalition seems to be something of an embarrassment to you now.
Well, I've just been telling you how well we did it. I mean, listen. The truth was there were a few Conservatives who had got on well with. We could work together on business. Like there were a lot that I couldn't do that with, and I fought the Conservatives in some departments every single day. It was not a comfortable experience. Eric Pickles, for example, he and I.
He's everybody's chum.
Well, he said he used to call me his chum. I have to tell you, I wasn't. I mean, I'll give you an example of something I fought with him on. I was trying to bring in something to help people who are renting. Basically, it was regulation to force landlords to make their homes more energy efficient so that it would cut the energy bills of people renting. And he didn't like it, and he tried to stop me. And at one stage he said, "Ed, me old chum, regulations are communist." Regulations are communist, right? You come out, he's right. And I said to him, "Listen, Eric, thou shalt not kill is a regulation, and it came in before Karl Marx."
Well, of course, he famously had a bust of Che Guevara in his office, didn't he?
Yeah, interesting guy, but I didn't agree with him on anything.
Okay. Victor, I don't think that will convince you, but thank you very much indeed for your call, and we'll take more questions in just a moment. It's 7:45 here on LBC.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
A very powerful piece by a politician who doesn't pull their punches. I speak of the Conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch. The article was accompanied with photographs of mostly, it would seem, teenage boys doing a link-up, or I knew it as steaming in parts of London. Mrs Badenoch, good morning.
We need to bring back consequences for people's negative actions.
You're of Nigerian lineage. What happens in the Nigerian family dynamic that we're not seeing here in the UK?
It goes well beyond the family dynamic, but I know if I had ever been caught doing anything like that, I would have been in so much trouble. You would be punished by the rest of society.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Back tomorrow morning from 7. Listen on our free Global Player app or the LBC app.
At Ocado, you'll save 25% on your first shop and get free delivery, which means if you were to buy a 4-cheese pizza, you'd basically be getting one of the cheeses for free. Save and splurge at Ocado, the online supermarket.
Geographical and other restrictions. Min spend £60 and charges apply. Discount available on food. New customers only. Max saving £20. Terms at ocado.com.
Hello, beautiful people! Get ready to rock with a new Volkswagen T-Roc. With £2,000 towards your finance deposit on the new Volkswagen T-Roc with Solutions PCP 7.9% APR representative. Test drive the T-Roc today and see why it won What Car's Best Small SUV Award. Ordered by the 4th of May 2026. Indemnities may be required. Volkswagen Financial Services.
Hey, you! Yeah, you! What would you like from your investing app? 6% interest on your ISA, a free share of your choice, or no commission on stocks and ETFs up to €100,000 per month? With XTB, you get all of the above all in one app, the XTB app. Get your free share and start investing with XTB today. XTB, where your money works.
Capital at risk. Investment values can rise or fall. Limited free stock availability. 2% ISA rate boost for 90 days. New clients only. T's and C's apply.
All right, resistance up. Let's climb.
Okay, here we go.
Oh, my knee's playing up again.
Have you ever had it looked at?
No, but I've been doing a few stretches.
When my shoulder went, Benenden Health got me expert help. Showed me exactly where I was going wrong.
30 seconds, people.
Press play on your health with physiotherapy and much more. All for less than £16 per person per month. Search Benenden Health. Fee reviewed periodically. T's and C's apply. Qualifying periods apply for some services, including physio. UK only. Visit benenden.co.uk.
This is LBC with Iain Dale. Call 0345 6060 973.
7:48. Ed, have you ever thought of doing one of your stunts dressed up as a drag queen?
No.
Because
no one's even proposed it.
You're going to meet one in a moment, because on Cross Question tonight we have Crystal, who was a very famous drag queen, real name Colin Seymour, and his TV personality. He's going to be on our panel. And Poppy Coburn, Deputy Comment Editor of the Daily Telegraph, David Simmons, Conservative Shadow Housing Minister, and Luke Akehurst, Labour MP for North Durham. But I just give that idea to you.
I might even listen.
I give you that idea to you free, so you might want to... I can... Actually, between now and 8 o'clock, if you have a drag name for Ed Davey, text it to 84850. I am being naughty, absolutely. Right,
you're going to do the same for Ian as well.
I suspect it might involve the word stunt. On Oliver is in Wakefield and he asks, I'm an 18-year-old and going off to university next year, and I'm looking at debts of up to £50,000 with no guarantee of a job at the end. With the Lib Dems having been in coalition when they trebled tuition fees to £9,000 a year, and it's now closer to £10,000 a year, is there any way to trust the Lib Dems?
Yes, because when we brought that in, we had maintenance grants and we had a system where you only started paying back when you were earning a decent wage as a graduate. What's been really sad is that's been changed. And both the Conservatives and Labour have frozen the point to which you repay your loan. You
were in the department under Vince Cable that did this, weren't you?
Well, part of the government, indeed. And, it was a difficult decision. Really felt very uncomfortable about it, but we have to accept it.
But you didn't. You could have said no.
All I'm saying is that the system that we actually brought in was a lot fairer than the current system, which has these high interest rates, the point at which you pay frozen, and the maintenance grants were taken away by the Conservatives. The Labour brought them back at a very, very low level. So it was a fairer system, Oliver, but I'm afraid it's not fair now, and we've put forward some policy ideas to make it a lot fairer.
We've already got the first suggestion for your drag name, Libby Demi.
Libby Demi. Oh, well, it could be worse, couldn't it?
It could. Another text question from Colin in Corby.
Colin,
a carer gets £2.45 an hour, £86 a week for 36 hours. What is your opinion on carers' allowance? The amount carers get is so minimal for the work.
Can we speak to Colin or not?
No, that's a text.
Colin, thank you for texting in. You're absolutely right. The carers allowance, first of all, is at way too low a level. And secondly, the other thing that really annoys me about it is that you can't manage your caring and working in a sensible way, because you probably know this, Colin, but when you earn over, I think it's about 190 quid, you lose the whole allowance. It's like a cliff edge. It's not tapered. That's created a bit of a scandal where the DWP have treated carers really badly. But it's also a system which penalises work, and so it creates a disincentive for carers to manage their caring for their loved ones with getting in a bit more money. And so I would reform the carers allowance system, top to bottom, to make it fairer. And you know what? If we did, I think you'd find a number of carers who could work wanting to be part of the workforce and managing it. It'd be better for their health, better for their family, better for the person they're looking after. So the carers allowance system needs pretty radical reform. Thank you, Colin. I'd be interested to know what you thought, if you can text or message again.
Well, we've talked about your caring responsibilities in the past at length, but as your son gets older, does the burden get greater?
It's difficult to say. I mean,
should I even refer to it as a burden?
Because that's probably what I'm responding to, because he's my adorable son, and I like to be the first person he sees every morning. I do most of the caring at the weekends. During the week, we get some help. But I like to be the first person to see him. I mean, it's difficult to say. I mean, he can hold his own weight because we've done a lot of exercise with him. He likes tricycling, likes swimming. But he's much bigger now.
How old is he?
He's 18. So getting him in and out of the shower is tougher. And my wife has MS, so she struggles with it. So it really has to be me at the weekends. So there's him just growing older and bigger and heavier. The thing that I talk about in the book, I wrote a book, you don't mind me plugging it, why I care matters, is, and you talk to a lot of families with children who are severely disabled, particularly they've got severe learning disabilities like my son John. You worry about what happens when you die, which is quite a difficult conversation, but it's a reality, right? So I'm a relatively old dad. I'm 60 now. My son's 18.
Sorry, I should have jumped in there so you don't look a day over 50.
Yeah, thank you. But I'm just... you can find it in Wikipedia if you want to. Anyway, the point is this. He hopefully will live a normal life expectancy, have a normal life expectancy, and I'll be long gone, and he'll have, several decades without me there. And that is the thing that...
I think that's the biggest issue that so many parents think about? Because, there is no solution, is there? Also, you don't want to die without knowing that there will be a solution.
Yeah. I think and save and plan for it. We have a lovely daughter who I don't talk very much about, but what I don't want to do is put the burden on her. There's a wonderful charity, by the way, if anyone's listening out there who are looking after a brother or sister, called SIBS, Sibling Carers. Wonderful charity, because it's tricky enough being a parent, but you will pass on. But if you're a sibling, you're with them the whole of your life. And, as a parent, we don't want to put that on our daughter, but we have to hope that she'll want to be there. And the issue is ensuring that the people who are doing the caring do it well, and it's quality care. Because, you've seen all those scandals where people haven't been looked after properly. And that's how any father and mother, that's their room 101.
Mary is in Cambridge. Hello, Mary.
Hello, thank you for taking my call. Now, Ed, this week is the first anniversary of the Supreme Court ruling that sex in the Equality Act 2010 means biological sex. And recently we've had the International Olympic Committee ruling that says athletes must compete in the appropriate category, subject to a simple chromosome test. So I want to know, how are you implementing this ruling within your own party structures? So if you have designated women's seats on your committees, presumably that means biological women.
Well, Mary, listen, thank you very much for your question.
No, hold on.
Oh, sorry.
Quickly, Mary.
What you need to know is I'm a lesbian feminist, so don't dump me into the sack full of squabbling cats that is the so-called LGBT, etc., community. Thanks very much.
Well, Marison, thank you very much for your question. It's a really tricky one. When the Supreme Court ruling came out, I accepted it straight away on behalf of the party because it's the law of law, and we believe in the rule of law.
What have you done about it?
Well, we've taken legal advice about how we implement it in our party, and we're doing it according to the rule of law. We are waiting, I think everyone's waiting, probably Mary and many others are waiting for the guidance from the ECHR. I don't know whether it's them who've been dragging their feet or the government. We haven't seen it. We have always said that we need to take the toxicity out of the debate and have a proper discussion about it. We've also said, by the way, Mary mentioned the Olympic Committee. It's up for sports bodies. Politicians shouldn't be overseeing a sport. It's up for the sporting bodies. However, we should know that a lot of trans people have been very worried about the ruling and feel very upset about it. And so they're waiting for this guidance to come out. And what we've said is, look, there's a standard procedure after law's been around for a long time, whether it's Gender Recognition Act of 2004 or the Qualities Act, which says you should review them and revise them, where you do it cross-party, you do it with the House of Lords committees and all the rest of it. That seems to me a really sensible, mature way of trying to make sure that the hostility that we've seen in some of this debate is managed fairly. We've always said we should abide by the law.
But you have expelled, I don't mean you personally, but the party has expelled people for holding gender-critical views in the past. Has that policy now changed?
We are a very open party. We apply the law on all our complaints processes. They are independent. That's really, really important. And they abide by the law. We have taken legal advice to make sure we always do. And if we have made mistakes in the past, we've been held to account for that. But we try not to, because that's...
But assuming that Mary holds general Liberal Democrat supportive views, would she, as somebody who's clearly gender critical, would she be welcome as a member of the Liberal Democrats?
Well, there are people in the party who are gender critical, so of course.
But why have you expelled people then?
Well, I don't know the specific cases you're referring to and the specific issues. I mean, as you will know, every case is individual and it goes through an independent complaints procedure. As you would expect, we try to be both fair and we certainly try to abide by the law. And where there's disputes, we take legal advice.
Right. Rico says, you've not had the easiest of life, Ed. If you could give your younger self any advice, what would it be?
Oh, Rico. Well, I've always been quite a positive person. And when I lost my father and mother as a kid, I think I grew up quite quickly. I matured quite quickly. I became quite resilient, quite empathetic. And that's probably one of the reasons why I ended up in politics. And I think what advice I give myself, I'd say trust yourself, be confident, have lots of friends, value your family. And, I had great brothers, great grandparents, and I've had great friends at school, university, and politics, and even in the media,
Right, some quickfire questions to finish with. Which other party leaders would you go to the pub with if you had to pick one?
Great question. Can I say John Swinney?
You can. Trump made himself into Jesus using AI, but if you were to use AI to make yourself look like someone else from history, who would it be?
King Athelstan, my hero.
Oh, wow. Now, that was an unexpected one.
Yeah. Well, King Athelstan was crowned in Kingston, my constituency, on the 4th of September 925, and he was the first king of England. And I'm actually working cross-party to celebrate, to help celebrate an occasion which was next year, 1,100 years ago, when he took homage from various other kings at the time and actually became the first king of England. And to mark the 1,100th anniversary of the first king of England is something. And so I'm a big King Athelstan fan.
And some people say that he was our greatest ever king, but we'll leave that debate for another time. If not England or Scotland, who's going to win the World Cup this summer, and do you back VAR?
VAR, that's a real question. I think you've got to go with VAR. I'm afraid it can be. What I think is it should be quicker. What I really dislike about VAR when it goes on for age and they, keeps the game stopped for about 5 minutes. I mean, they've got to sort that out. Who is going to win the World Cup? I mean,
Cape Verde. I think they've got a good
Cape Verde. Probably going to be Brazil, wouldn't it?
Not doing too well at the moment, I don't think. Anyway, final question, and I'm going to insist on an answer here. Was there one idea for an election stunt which was just too risky for you to try? Or tasteless?
Well, they put quite a few to me. I think there was one person who suggested I went into a cage with sharks around me. And
there's a TV programme about that.
Yeah. That didn't.
But you decided not to go to a Reform Party conference. Right. Final suggestion for your drag name, Edna Beveridge.
Beveridge.
Now, Beveridge,
yeah, I like
great
it.
Liberal
Good
politician.
Thinking.
Yeah, so
Edna.
I can see it happening. And if you do a drag act, I want you to tell everyone who gave you the idea. So, Ed Davey, thank you very much indeed. Very entertaining hour. And we will be talking to other senior politicians from the other political parties between now and the 7th of May election day. Coming up in a moment on Cross Question, we have Luke Akehurst, Labour MP for North Durham, David Simmons, Conservative Shadow Housing Minister and MP for Ruislip, Norwood and Pinner, Colin Seymour, a.k.a. Crystal, drag artist and TV personality, and Poppy Coburn, Deputy Comment Editor of the Daily Telegraph. They'll be here to take your calls on 0345 6060 973. You can WhatsApp on that number. You can text 84850. And of course, you can watch us on Global Player, the LBC app, and the LBC YouTube channel.
On your radio, on the LBC app, and
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 8 o'clock, Donald Trump's claiming the Iranians have phoned and want a deal. The US blockade of the Strait of Hormuz is underway. Meanwhile, the US president's doubled down on his criticism of the Pope, accusing Leo of being weak on crime and other things. Timothy Snyder, an American historian, told LBC Trump is competing with God.
The context with this is that he's in a kind of argument with Pope Leo, and his problem with Pope Leo is that Pope Leo actually does believe in God. And for Trump, that's the greatest greatest possible sin, because for Trump, Christian religion means worshipping Trump.
The parents of the Southport killer have been accused of bearing considerable blame for what happened by not reporting him beforehand. Sir Adrian Fulford, who chaired the inquiry into the attack that left 3 young girls dead in July 2024, also highlighted critical failures in information sharing. 2 people have been arrested on suspicion of murdering a 16-year-old boy in Peterborough. The teenager was stabbed near a shopping centre last night. And the Taxpayers Alliance claims more than 300 local council employees earned more than the Prime Minister last year. The campaign group says the number earning more than Sir Keir Starmer's basic wage of £172,000 has grown by a third since the previous year. In the city, the FTSE 100 closed down 18 points at 10,583. The pound buys $1.35 and €1.15. LBC weather: showers easing tonight, cloudy and windy in the southwest, lows of 1 degree. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Daryl Jackson.
I've looked after my kids since they were born. Now they've got kids. I still want to look after them. I don't want them struggling to make decisions about my money or my health if I can't. So we made a lasting power of attorney. Now, if I can't speak for myself, they'll speak for me. It's a weight off for all of us, isn't it?
Yes, Mum. Lasting power of attorney. Search your voice, your decision.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. Cross Question with Iain Dale.
Hello, a very good evening and welcome to Monday's Cross Question with me, Iain Dale. On the programme tonight, we have to my right Colin Seymour, aka Crystal, drag artist and TV personality and personal guru to Sir Ed Davey, it seems now. Next to him, David Simmons, Conservative Shadow Housing Minister and MP for Ruislip, Northwood and Pinner. To my right, Poppy Coburn, Deputy Comment Editor of the Daily Telegraph. And to her right, Luke Akehurst, Labour MP for North Durham. They are here to take your questions on any subject you like. It can be something in the news, or it could be just something ethical or moral. Who knows? We're a very ethical and moral programme sometimes. 0345 6060 973 is the number to call. You can text 84850 and do watch us on Global Player, the LBC app and the LBC YouTube channel.
0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Cross Question. Watch live on our free Global Player app or the LBC app.
Well, let's start off with a text question from Barry, who says, should religious leaders who are based in democratic territories really be getting involved in politics? I'm assuming that's a question about the Pope, but who knows? David Simmons.
No, I think is the short answer. I mean, there's a long tradition of people who are leaders of communities that are outside of the democratic process expressing a view. I think it's perfectly reasonable, given the history of things like the just war theory, for the Pope to give a view about that. However, we don't want to get into a situation with those who are not part of that democratic process and being perceived as involved in the decision making. I think it's perfectly reasonable for people to have and express an opinion, but to be effectively trying to set themselves up or being perceived to set themselves up, taking a view against the democratic process, I think, in my view, would be a retrograde step.
So was Donald Trump right to admonish the Pope?
Yeah, I think on this occasion, it's not often I would say Donald Trump got these things right, but I think we have to be very, very careful. And we live in a country that's fortunate to be a very plural society. We have freedom of religion. People are able to practice whatever faith they wish, or no faith if that's their preference as well. And I think that ability for people to express a view without seeking to unduly influence political opinion by arguing that their followers will go in a particular direction is really important. It's something we've seen featured in the recent Gorton and Denton by-election, for example, where we had a leaflet from the Green Party in Urdu that said Labour deserves to be punched over Gaza. Give the Muslims a voice. I think that was an example of somebody going down a route of trying to bring an unwelcome element of religious division into what should be an open and democratic debate. And I think we need to be careful against that sort of process.
But if the Pope can't have a view on a deeply moral and ethical issue like war, what can he have a view on?
Well, so in my view, it's perfectly reasonable for popes, for the Archbishop of Canterbury, for whoever to express a view about these things. But I think there's a distinction between those who are part of that elected democratic process, who have a mandate on behalf of the people of a particular country to make a decision, and those who are religious leaders who do not have that same mandate.
OK. Colin Seymour.
I disagree. I mean, we're talking about the democratic process, and we're also in the next breath talking about illegal war. So I think the idea of of President Trump criticizing someone advocating for peace is so ironic when he claimed he was going to be the president for peace. It's deeply frustrating. I'm not a fan of organized religion, and I definitely don't want to see religion involved in politics. But if the Pope can't advocate for peace, then I don't know what he can do and what he's for.
So if you're not an advocate for organised religion, are you an advocate for disorganised religion?
Yes, I think I probably would prefer it, to be honest. Keep it to yourself as far as I'm concerned.
Poppy Coburn.
I don't think the Pope should get involved, but I am sympathetic to the people who are outraged by the things that Donald Trump has been doing. I mean, let's remember what these comments do seem to be reacting off the back of, that awful Truth Social post from Donald Trump where he said he wanted to wipe out the entire Iranian civilization. I can understand the impulse on behalf of the Pope for wanting to intervene and explain that that's unacceptable. But I think there's another aspect here that's worth discussing about why it's a bad idea for the Pope in particular to get involved in political matters. There is a rich history of popes getting involved in these sorts of situations, and it has usually ended quite badly. So Pope Leo, he is the first American Pope, has been suggested not just by Donald Trump that might have been done perhaps on purpose as a kind of moral restraint on the Trump era or a counterbalancing force. But the last time in history when we had lots of popes coming from the same country and exerting force on a country, this was Italy. There was a period of about 100 years where every pope was coming from Italy. It had really disastrous consequences, and it actually was intertwined with the rise of nationalism and fascism within Italy. So I do think there should be a distinction between religion and politics, but at the same time, it is totally within his remit, and in fact within all of our remit, to call out how appalling the things that Donald Trump has been saying. They are not part of civilised political discourse, and we shouldn't normalise them.
Luke Akehurst.
Yeah, I think it's perfectly within the Pope's rights to say what he wants to about issues that he thinks are deep moral issues, and war and peace is clearly one of those. There's history in this country of clerical figures saying things about politics. I'm thinking of the Bishop of Durham in the 1980s had a lot to say about the miners' strike and Margaret Thatcher's social and economic agenda because he thought those were moral questions. I would kind of caution politicians, whether it's President Trump or anyone else that gets criticised by a religious leader, it's probably not a good idea to get into fighting back against them. You just kind of have to accept that if you're going to do controversial things that might run against the teachings of a particular faith, then you'll get criticised for it. What I wouldn't want to see is religious leaders actually telling their flock which way to vote, which has happened sometimes historically. I think it's really unhealthy.
Happened to me.
It's like undue influence, actually. It's like telling people that they're sinning if they don't vote in a particular direction, and that needs to be avoided.
When I stood in North Norfolk in 2005, there was a vicar, I only found this out years afterwards, who advised his congregation not to vote for me because I was a deeply immoral homosexual.
Wow.
It's bizarre.
Was that why you didn't end up in the House of Commons?
That clearly accounted for my 10,600 majority against me. Right. Barry says, should religious leaders who are based... So we've done that one, haven't we? Beatrice says, why should the Anglican bishops get out of the House of Lords? So should they, Anglican bishops, get out of the House of Lords then? Well, they've done away with all the hereditary peers, so why not the bishops now? Luke?
I'm actually not a religious person. I used to think when I was younger I was an atheist, and now I describe myself as an agnostic because I'm kind of open to the idea of religion, but I haven't had a moment of finding a faith. But I am relaxed about the presence of Church of England bishops in the House of Lords because it's the recognised state religion. It's part of our history and our heritage.
Why not have some Catholic bishops and some imams and some?
The last couple of chief rabbis have been in the House of Lords, not because by virtue of their office, but they've been appointed as life peers. And I actually kind of think mixing up and having representation from other faiths probably adds something to the debates in the Lords, but I wouldn't. My starting point wouldn't be to get rid of the C of E representation.
I don't really understand this piecemeal approach to the House of Lords. Either you respect the historical reasons for why we had the House of Lords and you understand its place in public life, or you just get rid of it altogether. I don't really understand picking and choosing. We can have hereditary peers; they have to go. We can't use them anymore. But it's totally fine to have Anglican bishops. I would actually prefer we were just more straightforward and either said everyone's in or everybody's out, because at the moment it's slightly nonsensical and it feels very small C Conservative from the government. They're just testing the waters or maybe throwing a bit of red meat towards the base when they feel they can. There doesn't actually seem to be any real ideological direction behind the things that they're doing.
Okay, Colin?
I agree with Poppy, except I would just advocate for abolishing the House of Lords altogether. I don't see the point of it. I don't think it has any place in a modern democracy. And I think the idea of any position of power being granted just by virtue of your birth or your position in a religion, it just flies in the face of democracy.
David?
I think the House of Lords is a classic example of that political conundrum. It's the worst possible system apart from all the others. And the reality is the House of Lords, in my view, works very well. If we look at the job it does for revising legislation, of dealing with sometimes very difficult
topics.
But the
bishops don't do
it's good at that. Well, they're part of that process. And I think Luke's point and Poppy's point, it feels to me like we should have a greater diversity of voices there. I don't think we should try and set that at a national level. You'd start saying, well, how many Jews are there in the country? How many Muslims? How many Catholics? And then, do the Methodists get their own separate allocation? I don't think we should be going down that kind of process. But the point of the House of Lords is it aims to bring people together from business, from academia, from medicine, from science, in a way that the democratic process wouldn't necessarily bring together, and it performs a valuable function in our country. And it's my view that our hereditary peers, who are a small part of that picture, have also performed a valuable part of that, even if the means by which they come to be there seems to be politically indefensible. It is nonetheless the case that they do an extremely good job, and I think we'll be worse off for losing them.
Well, not anymore, they don't. So, are you not in favour of any form of House of Lords reform?
Well, I think the reforms that we've had over the years have been helpful. The House of Lords effectively used to occupy the senior position in the Parliament, and it's now clear that the democratic part of Parliament has the superior mandate. But there are occasions, and I think we've all seen them when different parties have been in government, where something that may be in a manifesto, something that's a particular political direction, is changed by what happens in the House of Lords, and that can be for the greater good of the country. So it is a part of our political constitution that performs a useful function, and I don't think we can just tweak it without perhaps having a wider debate about what all of those other parts look like as well.
Right, more questions to come. You're listening to Cross Question on LBC. It's 17 minutes past 8.
This is LBC.
Experience. It's knowing when something is worth waiting for and when it isn't. That's why Saga Health Insurance offers unlimited GP appointments whenever you need them. With a choice of flexible plans, prompt tests and treatment, your health is taken care of. And right now, you'll get a £250 gift card when you take out Saga Health Insurance. Search Saga Health Insurance for a quote today. Start a new policy before the 28th of May. New customers over 50 only. Terms and conditions apply.
And when teams feel supported, they can achieve anything.
Sorry. Just had even more of my team are off ill.
Have you tried Bennenden Health? It's easy to set up. They've got a GP helpline you can book 24/7.
Where were we?
A coffee break, hopefully.
Press play on your people's health with a wide range of healthcare services for less than £16 per employee per month. Search Bennenden for business. Fee review periodically. T's and C's apply. Qualifying periods apply for some services. UK only. Visit bennenden.co.uk.
Train to Cambridge and then all aboard the paddleboards. A little bit different, should be fun. Or wobbly, or wet.
The wetsuit's a good look on you, Steve. Oh, actually, this is very relaxed. Georgie's up the river Cam without a paddle.
Train home, that was such a laugh. I think I might even have a new hobby. Download the Thameslink Railway app to book tickets and save a third off group travel on off-peak journeys. Thameslink Railway, where every stop is a story.
Cross Question with Iain Dale on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
18 minutes past 8. On our panel tonight, David Simmons, Conservative Shadow Housing Minister, Colin Seymour, drag artist and TV personality, Poppy Coburn, Deputy Comment Editor of The Telegraph, and Luke Akehurst, Labour MP for North Durham. Right, a WhatsApp question here from David. Given Trump and his administration have backed the wrong horse in the Australian, Canadian and now Hungarian elections, should the Trump-style sympathetic politicians in this country take notice? Well, we don't have one on the panel, but I'm sure you will all have views. Let's take this one quite quickly. Poppy.
Yes. If anyone here has ever attended CPAC, they'll realise, yes, what's always interesting about America First is there are so many people there who are not American. It's kind of like a pilgrimage for all sorts of kind of populist right-wingers who come to kind of pay fealty to Donald Trump. That was very true in his first term. In the second term, it's completely different. Everyone wants to move away from Donald Trump as quickly as they possibly can because he is so electorally toxic. We've been seeing this in 2 European countries that I can think of off the top of my head. The French right wing and the German right wing, and I'm talking about the AfD and the Front National, they have both distanced themselves very strongly from Trump, particularly in regards to foreign policy. The fact that JD Vance actually was in Hungary a couple of days ago and, you know, holding up a mobile phone of Donald Trump and saying, you know, this guy wants Orban to stay in power, and then, of course, it's landslide result for the opposition, does seem to suggest quite strongly that because of what America is doing on the international stage, if you are on the populist right, the last thing you want at the moment is an endorsement from the Trump administration.
Luke?
Yeah, but it's a bit late for Nigel Farage to deal with that. It'd be shutting the stable door after the horse has bolted, because there are hundreds.
He has got a bit cooler towards Trump.
There's hundreds of photographs of him stood with Trump with his arm around him, smiling, speaking on platforms together. And it's really one of the vulnerabilities of reform is that there are loads of people that like their policy agenda but don't like.
I mean,
Trump
whatever
connection.
Nigel Farage has done, he hasn't handed Trump an invitation from the king, has he?
I think there's a big difference between the relationships that you have to have as a head of government. You've got to deal with someone else that's, in this case, both a head of government and a head of state, so entitled to have some kind of head of state relationship with the king as well as with Keir. And throughout that relationship, the Prime Minister has tried to get what's best for Britain out of the relationship with one of our biggest trading partners and our biggest military ally. There's a big difference between that and a sort of party political relationship with someone that is, to put it politely, rather a controversial. Do you think, though, figure.
That Keir Starmer has now got to change horses and that the relationship with Trump is now effectively in tatters?
I think it actually, it wasn't even Iran, that the Greenland crisis earlier this year really represent. I mean that was a very, very dangerous moment, even if it was just rhetoric. To use that kind of rhetoric about Denmark, which was a NATO partner, was a really dangerous moment. And then there was the bit where Trump was disparaging about the contribution of British troops in Afghanistan, and the Prime Minister had to call him out on that.
So are you saying the scales have fallen from Keir Starmer's eyes?
I don't think there were ever any scales there, but he was trying to maintain the best possible relationship that he could. And remember, we did get out of that, the warmer period for the first year or so, we did get a trade agreement and shelter from the worst of the tariffs that has kept our automotive and what's left of our steel industry able to function. So these are these are things that are hugely important for the British economy. And even if the relationship is weaker, the stuff around defence and the technologies involved in defence, they can't be replaced overnight. So we've got to try and keep it going.
Yeah, I would just also go a step further and say, as we approach elections, I think it's going to be really important to remind everyone how cozy Nigel Farage has been with Trump in the past, and just not let anyone forget it, because I think the toxification of Trump is going to continue and worsen. And, Luke's just outlined many of the reasons why that is. As that continues to worsen, we need to remember that close relationship that Nigel Farage has had with Trump in the past, and not be fooled if he starts to distance himself from Trump.
Could I just ask there quickly, because what strikes me is it's definitely unambiguously true that Nigel Farage has a close relationship with Donald Trump, but every single country that is allied to America at the moment is suffering in almost exactly the same way. I mean, you can see this with the Japanese Prime Minister, the South Korean leader. You can see this with Macron, who is having pretty unpleasant relationships.
But if we had Farage in
America as a problem, not just.
But if we had Farage in power right now, we'd be in a war in Iran.
I don't think that's true. I mean, Kemi Badenoch has been more in favour of the war in Iran than Nigel Farage.
It's just not clear to me that a closer relationship with Trump would be of any benefit to us.
I would say that Nigel Farage was more circumspect, or at least saw what was happening with the war slightly more quickly. Not that makes it any better.
But initially, not at the point where the actual decision would have been made. He started to backtrack on it after the point at which a Prime Minister would have had to commit British forces.
And I can't really think of a bigger damning factor of why no one should vote for Farage. That says it all.
David?
Well, politics at heart is about how we live together and do stuff together as people. I think both Trump and Farage are anti-political politicians. I think Luke and I will see in Westminster, you've got a cohort of Reform MPs who never turn up. So they've got a platform. They say that certain things are important to them and their supporters. They don't turn up in the chamber. They don't ask questions about them. They don't run campaigns about them. They don't use the power that they've been given. And we can see, Trump, in a very similar way to Farage, looks for issues that divide people and seeks to gain political support. That's the reason why Reform has both a very loyal supporter base and is also the most hated political party. And I get the same impression from relatives in the US that Trump is one of those politicians that there are some people who are really loyal and think he's marvellous, and then a very large cohort of people who think anything but Trump. But overall, none of it has been constructive either for the wider world or for our particular country. Our cost of living is rising as a result of those actions that have been taken. Our international relations, our trade, our quality of life is all being harmed by those actions. And therefore, we need to find a better way to have a relationship with our closest ally, which is the United States.
Right, a text question from Barry in Scunthorpe. Is Keir Starmer taking us back into the EU by stealth? Now, the government is set to bring Britain back into alignment with EU rules relating to food and drink standards, carbon emissions and electricity, with the UK being subjected to any future changes to these rules from Brussels without having any influence over those changes. Poppy?
I mean, I can understand why the temptation is there to kind of press the big red button and move ourselves closer to the European Union. I think, unfortunately, this comes down from the fact that the government's domestic agenda is so small scale that they're almost looking for a fiscally neutral rabbit to pull out of a hat to actually provide something real and tangible of some kind of economic benefit they can provide to the country. I just don't think they're going to actually achieve the things that they want to. I think most people would say that there is a lot of scope for smoother trade relationships with the European Union. But if you actually look into why that hasn't been happening, I mean, it is not true that that is just Britain's fault. It's a two-way street. You have to actually want the European Union to play ball with you as well. And the problem is, because so much time has elapsed since we've left the European Union, and we have built up these trade relations, which you mentioned earlier that Keir Starmer has achieved last year, you are unfortunately putting those trade relationships at risk. So the idea that you can go back in time and undo leaving the European Union, and that's just an easy way forward, I think is not correct. And I think a lot of people will end up being quite disappointed by the reality of what actually would end up happening.
David Simmons.
There's a lot of technical questions, which we know as a result of the Trade and Cooperation Agreement, which was signed at the time of Brexit, were left to be determined. So clearly, when my party was in office, we had to have those discussions and negotiations on things like food standards. And clearly, the current government are having some of the same conversation. But clearly, I was a strong Remain campaigner, but I accepted the outcome of that referendum and the decision that was made. And clearly, it's that sense of, are people seeking to reverse that decision by stealth? that raises quite a set of serious issues. But we need to make sure, given that the EU is our biggest single trading partner, that we've got good relationships with them. We know that we've seen holidays disrupted by border systems and all sorts of things like that. It is absolutely critical in our interest and in theirs that we find a way to work together as constructively as we can. And given what we've seen happen recently in our relationship with the US, we need to make sure that we are in a situation where our neighbourhood is a neighbourhood of strong allies that support each other when difficult times happen.
Colin.
Yes, I actually completely agree. I think this bill, anything that takes us closer to the EU is a benefit as far as I'm concerned. I think the problem with something like this is that we end up following EU rules without having any ability to help shape them. And, I would obviously love us to go a step further and rejoin the single market. I think the volatility we've seen from the US, the tariff war that we saw, it just illustrates how important it is that we need strong allies. And currently we're just at sea with no real friends anywhere. And I think we're looking really, really powerless right now. So yes, anything that takes us closer to the EU, brings us closer back to that relationship is really, really welcome.
Luke.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a series of technical measures to make trade easier. No one's talking about going anywhere near the single market and the customs union, let alone EU membership. And memory...
Why not, though? Because I would imagine the majority of Labour MPs would absolutely love to rejoin the EU.
Yeah, but we need to respect the decision that was taken by our constituents. I mean, I campaigned
but events have changed, haven't they?
I campaigned for Remain and we lost. And I don't hear anyone on the doorsteps in North Durham saying, "Oh, we want to go back into the EU," and we wouldn't be able to go back in on the set of rules that we used to have because they were specially negotiated over a series of governments. We'd have to go back in on the kind of base level rules, which would be a lot less advantageous. But what I was going to say was that Brexit referendum, the Leave side didn't imply there would be hard Brexit. They whenever they were questioned about, does this mean we're leaving the customs union and the single market? They kept saying, no, that we'll probably stay in those. We'll have a relationship like Norway does or whatever. And then over the 4 years of the negotiations or failure of negotiations and all the different parliamentary votes, that I'm very relieved that I didn't get into Parliament early enough in my life to have to participate in all those late night votes. The thing shifted to kind of crashing out with virtually no relationship at all, which has been really detrimental for some of the people like fishermen and farmers who thought that they were going to benefit from Brexit but have actually really suffered from it.
Well, the most recent national poll from BMG Research shows 48% of people are in favour of rejoining. No, not 52% want to stay out, 34% want to stay out. So that means that 19% don't have a clue. There we go. More questions from you in just a few moments' time. It's 8:31 here on LBC. Let's get the news headlines from Daryl Jackson.
Donald Trump claims the Iranians have phoned and want a deal. The US blockade of the Strait of Hormuz is underway. Meanwhile, Britain and France are looking at ways of reopening the vital shipping channel. A damning report found the Southport killings could and should have been prevented. The inquiry chairman says Aqsa Rudakabana's attack in July 2024 wouldn't have happened if his parents had reported his increasingly erratic behaviour and state agencies hadn't failed in their duties. And 2 people have been arrested on suspicion of murdering a 16-year-old boy in Peterborough. The teenager was stabbed near a shopping centre last night. LBC weather, showers easing tonight, cloudy and windy in the southwest, lows of 1 degree.
This is LBC.
Next.
Hi, just these, thanks. Do you do cashback?
Just need to check you're not a robot first. New security policy.
OK.
How many traffic lights can you see out the window?
2.
No, that's wrong.
Right, well, obviously I'm not a robot.
That's what a robot would say.
What a load of malarkey. Smarty keeps things simple, like 80 gigabytes for £10. And on a rolling monthly SIM plan, you're free to leave any time. Less malarkey, more Smarty. Search Smarty Mobile.
Buying a home on a holiday park was the retreat you always wanted. But then came unexpected site fee increases. And that was before the dramatic loss in value. If you bought a home on a holiday park in the UK, you may have been missold. holidayparkadvicecentre.co.uk could help you receive thousands in compensation.
Text ASSIST to 78900. That's ASSIST to 78900.
And when teams feel supported, they can achieve
Sorry, just heard even more of my team are off ill.
Have you tried Bennenden Health? It's easy to set up. They've got a GP helpline you can book 24/7.
Where were we?
A coffee break, hopefully.
Press play on your people's health with a wide range of healthcare services for less than £16 per employee per month. Search Bennenden for business. Fee review periodically. T's and C's apply. Qualifying periods apply for some services. UK only. Visit bennenden.co.uk.
Cross Question with Iain Dale on LBC. Text 84850.
8:33, Poppy Coburn is here, Deputy Comment Editor of The Telegraph. Colin Seymour, drag artist and TV personality. David Simmons, Conservative Shadow Housing Minister and MP for Ruislip, Northwood and Pinner. And Luke Akehurst, Labour MP for North Durham. Right, a text question here from Danielle. Should parents really be blamed for what their 17-year-old son did? Now, the first phase of the inquiry into the August 2024 Southport child murders has strongly criticised the parents of Axel Rudikabana for not having done, quote, what they morally ought to have, and reported to police that their son was hoarding weapons inside the family home. So, should parents really be blamed for what their 17-year-old son did? Luke?
There's such a horrible story of those 3 young girls that were killed in this dreadful way, and I guess the parents are going to carry this for the rest of their lives, feeling that there were actions that they could have taken, and having been told that formally in an inquiry, you've got to have some empathy for them, because the son was violent in the house and had really violent outbursts from everything that we're told, and so there was an element that the parents were probably physically afraid of causing other outbursts. But then it is very strange, given how he was kind of self-radicalising, not really around any ideology, but just with a kind of obsession with violence. It's really strange that they didn't involve the police, because that would have probably been better for their own safety. They probably would have been arrested or taken into care if they had blown the whistle and said about what was going on. I understand from the report they even allowed weapons to be delivered in the post to his house, and they knew about that. And that's pretty shocking that they didn't alert the authorities.
Do you think it has something to do with shame, embarrassment, that it might get out, the neighbours might find out, that sort of mentality?
I don't know. It's very difficult to put yourself in the shoes of people in facing such an extreme situation with their own child.
Poppy?
I think they should take the blame, and that's why I think they were named as being morally culpable, or at least somewhat morally culpable. I understand wanting to protect your child, but that should not go as far as when your child is creating a biological weapon in his bedroom, when your child is ordering machetes to your house, when you know that your child has in previous years taken a knife into school 10 times. The family are well aware of the person that Axel Rudikabana was and was becoming. That said, the ultimate blame has to lay with the government authorities, who had multiple opportunities to intervene. The many, many different agency bodies that we have set up in this country that are supposed to stop things like this from happening totally failed in their responsibilities. So that's not to say that the family do not play a primary role here in actually controlling their son's behaviour. They could have stopped this from happening, which is the most, heartbreaking and revolting outcome of this inquiry. But also the government has a real need to look at the way that these agencies are working. How could it be that he is referred to prevent 3 times, that people are not bothering to communicate with each other about this incredibly dangerous young man that allowed this attack to happen? So I think ultimately that's the thing we have to take away from this. Not another incident where we go, lessons will be learned and nothing actually changes.
Colin?
Yeah, it sounds like from everything I've read that, it's a myriad of failures that led to this. It's not the case that the parents are solely to blame. These kids who were murdered were let down at multiple points. I'm not going to, put myself in the head of Axel Rudbecana's parents, but, hopefully one positive that could come out of this is more awareness of parents of keeping an eye on this kind of violent content. And, if you have a young man in the house who's consuming this kind of content, don't take it lightly. Do follow up, do investigate. And, that is a horrible position to be in. And as Luke said, these parents are going to carry this with them for the rest of their lives. But hopefully some good can come out of this, that, people are more aware of the kinds of harmful content that is out there that is radicalizing kids, and where these ideas are coming from. I mean, it's awful. And I'm really loath to kind of try and make political hay out of this situation, but it's just very, very tragic.
David?
I think I agree broadly with what Poppy's analysis is, and clearly there's going to be more coming out in further stages of the inquiry, which will tell us the answers to some of the questions. But I think the point that was being made is not that parents in general are responsible for their 17-year-olds, but these specific parents to whom it would have been completely obvious that their child posed a very significant and growing risk to the lives of others would have had a duty, a responsibility to make sure that local authorities, police and others with whom they were already engaged were aware that that risk was growing, and they failed to do that. So alongside some of the institutions, the police, parent organisations, social workers, all of whom are often in the firing line in this type of situation, it's probably helpful to everybody really for our society, for the debate to go on, that says if you are aware that something as serious as this is developing, the fact that it's your child, it might be your friend, it might be a neighbour, should not prevent you from sharing those concerns. And it might amount to nothing. It might, however, head off another tragedy like this one. And that is something that is really worth focusing on.
OK, let's move on to a call from Dave in the City of London. Dave, very good evening. What would you like to ask the panel?
Hello, panel, and Ian. I'm the Chief Executive of the Sustainable Energy Association, so my question relates to net zero. Are you concerned about the emerging fracture in what has up until now been about a 20-year political consensus on net zero? And if so, what do you think the body of politicians should do about it?
Colin?
Yes, I'm deeply concerned. And, I think what we're seeing in the Strait of Hormuz right now really demonstrates how much we in the UK need to start relying even more heavily on green energy solutions, partially to wean ourselves off the reliance of foreign energy, and also because I believe strongly in net zero. And it all comes down again to a bit of fear-mongering about the prospect of a reform government, as far as I'm concerned. I think we need to be very cautious of that, and we need to be electing leaders who have net zero firmly in their sights and who are really committed to delivering it.
What about countries in other parts of the world, though? They will find it more difficult to get to net zero because, we rely a lot on wind power because we have a lot of wind. I'm not an expert on the Malaysian climate, but I don't imagine they probably have as much wind as we do.
I think they've got quite a lot of sunshine. They could probably do solar a bit better than us.
Well, that is true.
And, I think there's nothing more patriotic than leading the way globally on this. I think it's such
to be fair, we have.
Yeah, and I think we should continue to do so. It's really, really important, and it's something that we can demonstrate global leadership on, and we can be really proud of in the UK.
We have led the way globally on having some of the highest industrial energy costs in the world. I'm not necessarily sure that's the sort of global leadership we actually want. I think the problem when we say things like there's political consensus on net zero, well, there was in Parliament, but I'm not sure there actually was among the general public. Even the law that enshrined net zero was rushed through in the last days of Theresa May's government. We were not consulted on what is essentially a binding piece of legislation. The problem is at the moment is, we are moving towards a renewables world, but it's about pace, scale, and what types of renewable energy we're actually moving towards. Unfortunately, at the moment, we have a scarcity problem. You can look at a big country like China. China has a mixed source of energy. It still uses coal power. But also it's really leading the way in the renewables. It's incredibly effective at producing the frontline technologies that will lead us to the green revolution in the future. But what China's number one concern is energy abundance and energy security. Unfortunately, I think British politicians have been too worried about leading the way globally, having a good look, feeling fuzzy and warm inside. They haven't actually taken into account what is in the self-interest of their voters. And it is certainly not in our self-interest to be losing our industrial base, what little we have left of it. It is not in our interest to have to constantly be subsidising energy bills because our energy costs are so incredibly high. And it's definitely not in our interest that when there is a supply side shock, like the one we're experiencing at the moment, to not have a backup plan, to not have reserves. And so that is why I am not concerned that more and more people are raising concerns with the net zero strategy, because it is full of holes. It is problematic. And that's what the political sphere is about. It's about having these conversations, not just saying, I'm taking this out of the political space because I like it and I don't really care what you people think.
David?
Well, circumstances have changed as well, and that's the other thing I think we have to be realistic about. The UK has been the most successful developed economy at reducing our carbon emissions against the 1990 baseline. But over that time, we've seen countries like China who focused on decarbonising their manufacturing. So rather than focusing on making the energy system less carbon intensive, they focused on making their factories less carbon intensive. So they've now got a huge advantage in that they've already done the industrial stuff and maintained their industrial base. And now they're doing the relatively more straightforward bit, which is reducing their reliance on things like coal because they're manufacturing solar, wind turbines, nuclear at large scale. So the issue that it creates for us is we do have the highest industrial energy costs, the second highest domestic energy costs of any developed economy. That's having a major impact on us. And the specific strategy that the government are pursuing requires that in parallel to developing enough renewable capacity for the whole of our energy needs, we also need to maintain enough gas-powered capacity for the whole of our energy needs in order to sustain the needs of our economy long term. We won't be able to generate the electricity for electric vehicles solely on the basis of renewables alone, because they are not consistent. Sometimes the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine. So this means that we've got not just the cost of renewables, we've also got the cost of modernising and maintaining that gas infrastructure and nuclear. And at a time when we're seeing this level of global instability, that means the costs are going up. And I think Kemi Badenoch is absolutely spot on when she says, whilst we maintain that desire to reach net zero, natural gas is not just a fuel, it's also essential for manufacturing fertiliser, which we need for our agriculture. Additional supply would reduce the cost overall, and having our own sovereign supply would reduce our dependency on countries and the behaviour of countries like Russia, Iran, and indeed what's happened recently with the United States. So to me, it just seems an obvious thing we need to say. Circumstances have changed. We need to adjust our plans accordingly.
Okay, Luke?
Yeah, I'm a pragmatist on this. So I think we need as many diverse sources of energy as we can possibly get, and as many that aren't dependent on imports. So I think it's great that, particularly that we're developing wind power. That we've had the announcement today about the deal with Rolls-Royce on the small modular nuclear reactors. I think carbon capture and storage is a really important technology, and also keeps some of the North Sea jobs going. But the two proposed new oil and gas fields, I would go with them. I don't think we should beat ourselves up.
But the question's about net zero.
In order to have a I think we should probably keep the target there, but it might be that in the immediate years in between, we have to take a couple of smaller steps initially.
But that's
because
not
of
the message that Ed Miliband is giving.
Well, I'm in a slightly different place to Ed on this, and I've been public about it in the media anyway. But the other thing is the crisis in Iran might mean that we have to look again at those oil and gas fields, but it's also driving consumers very heavily towards going for EVs rather than internal combustion engine cars. It's speeding up the transition to greener vehicles in another sector of the economy. So I'm not kind of ideological about we have to hit this target this year. Indeed, on the EV stuff, I'm a critic of how hardline the ZEV mandate is and the damage that could be doing to our domestic car industry. Which, if you're an MP near to the Nissan plant in Sunderland, you want to enable that company to transition fully to EVs at a realistic pace rather than one that's strictly forced.
Can I just come back really quickly and just say, net zero also just isn't something that would be nice for us to have. The potential costs from global warming that we're going to see via mass migration and global catastrophes, it just can't be ignored. And we can't pretend that we can just focus on the short term here. It's so important that we look at the long term and that we stick to our pledges about net zero.
Okay. I suspect both Luke and I would agree with that, but would make the point that the UK is less than 1% of global emissions. So unless we all do it together, it doesn't make sense.
Well, we're either a global player or we're not.
It's 8:47.
On the latest episode of The Newsagents.
So we're on the streets of Budapest as Viktor Orban is kicked out of power after 16 years. Is this the end of populism in Hungary and possibly in Europe? Or is it just the beginning of something else?
Get the latest episode of The Newsagents with Emily Maitlis, John Sopel and Lewis Goodall. Listen or watch on our free Global Player app or the LBC app.
At Ocado, you'll save 25% on your first shop and get free delivery, which means if you were to buy a 4-cheese pizza, you'd basically be getting one of the cheeses for free. Save and splurge at Ocado, the online supermarket.
Geographical and other restrictions. Min spend £60 and charges apply. Discount available on food. New customers only. Max saving £20. Terms at ocado.com.
Cancer doesn't care about childhood. It doesn't care what they miss out on or how much you want to protect them. But we do. At Great Ormond Street Hospital Charity, we fund life-saving research, vital family support, and the special things that help seriously ill kids be kids. Until no childhood is lost to cancer. Join us. Search GOSH Charity.
Your time is valuable. Your perspective should be too. The Economist cuts through the noise with the stories that truly shape your world.
How can you believe that a new regime won't crush you just like the previous one?
Online scams are stranger than they've ever been.
When the world's turned upside down, know which way is up. Read, watch, or listen to The Economist.
Next.
Hi, just these thanks. Did you cash back?
Just need to check you're not a robot first. New security policy.
Okay.
How many traffic lights can you see out the window?
2?
No, that's wrong.
Right, well, obviously I'm not a robot.
That's what a robot would say.
What a load of malarkey. Smarty keeps things simple, like 80 gigabytes for £10. And on a rolling monthly SIM plan, you're free to leave anytime. Less malarkey, more smarty. Search Smarty Mobile.
Get that Euro Millions feeling this Friday. 10 UK winners are guaranteed to be millionaires. That's 10 more reasons to dance. 10 more robots, 10 more limbos, 10 more salsas. 10 UK winners are guaranteed to be millionaires this Friday. Euro Millions from the National Lottery. It could be you. Rules apply. 18+.
Cross Question with Iain Dale. Watch live on our free Global Player app or the LBC app.
10 to 9 on LBC. Luke Akehurst, David Simmons, Colin Seymour and Poppy Goburn with us answering your questions. Here's one from Mike in Salisbury. Are council leaders overpaid, or is the Prime Minister underpaid for what is asked of them? Research by the Taxpayers Alliance campaign group has found that 320 local council civil servants from across the UK were paid more than the Prime Minister's annual salary for the 2024 to 2025 financial year, which was just over £172,000. For comparison, the US President is paid an annual salary of $400,000, plus an expense allowance of $169,000, though Trump donates his salary to US government agencies and also to charities. Well, bless him. Luke?
I think you would expect government or local government officials to earn more than elected politicians, because when they're at the top of running the organisations, because all of us who go into elected public life accept that there's an element of that sort of being a vocation rather than just it's not just a day job, and that we don't expect kind of market related salaries, even to be Prime Minister, when we get a very very handsome salary as an MP, but it's not supposed to be measured against people that are full-time civil servants or indeed captains.
Yes, but being Prime Minister is more than a full-time job. You have far more responsibility than a chief executive of Middletonshire South.
But no, people aren't doing it for the money, the incentive. It shouldn't relate to salary to go into public life. It shouldn't be so low that people can't afford to do it, or that people are literally put off from doing it. But none of us should be going into politics because we want to get rich out of it.
No, fair enough. But when you see somebody earning £450,000 who's chief executive of a council that you've never heard of, the responsibilities in that job, I'm sorry, are not comparable to the Prime Minister's responsibilities.
Have a look at how many people they're directly managing and the size of budget that they're directly managing. Remember that a Prime Minister or a minister has, or the leader of a council has, loads and loads of professional civil servants helping them with it. Ultimately they're the decision maker, they're the politician, but the actual day-to-day management is done by the kind of people whose salaries it's easy to criticise.
David?
The Prime Minister arguably is underpaid, but you wouldn't find a council leader who's paid more than half of the Prime Minister's salary. So this is comparing different things. The chief executive of a council is somebody at the top level of their professional career. The nearest equivalent in government is probably the cabinet secretary, and the highest paid local authority chief exec is going to be on about half the salary that the government's cabinet secretary is as the most senior civil servant. So you're comparing very...
That's true at all.
Well,
in fact, I think it's the reverse.
I can say from a lot of experience in local government, chief execs tend to peak at around 200,000, and the cabinet secretary, last time we had a review into this, was on just over 400 in terms of the package. So I don't think you're comparing the same things, the same roles that there are. But the broader question I think Luke touches on, it's a political decision how we value the role of our Prime Minister. Do we feel that the level of pay, the package and so on is overall the right one? Of course, as Prime Minister, you get accommodation, you get Downing Street, you get a flat for which you pay a rent, you get access to Chequers, you've got a country house. You've got all sorts of other things that are provided.
Pay for the meals, which
you have to make a contribution.
Utterly ridiculous.
It's one of those questions. I think, to me, the question is not so much how does this compare to what you see in some local authorities. Mostly council leaders' salaries were benchmarked about 15 years ago to the salary of a then backbench MP, so they tend to top out around the mid-60,000s. Chief executives who are professionals can come out much higher. But we need to ask, are we providing our prime ministers, political leaders, generally all the people we expect to discharge these functions with a relevant level? And if we are going to make comparisons, well, should the business secretary's salary be pegged to the highest paid business people in the country? Should the health secretary be pegged to the highest paid doctors in the NHS who are on significantly more than any politician would? And I think we've got a reasonable settlement where MPs' government salaries are set through an independent process that is benchmarked. And I think a bit like the Brexit referendum, I don't see any great value in revisiting that argument because we've got much more important things to be dealing with.
Well, the highest recorded remuneration was to an unnamed employee of the Staffordshire Council who was paid £457,500 in 24 to 25. The Cabinet Secretary, David, earns half what you said, £200,000 a year.
So I think, again, when we look at what those figures are for remuneration that are being quoted, they include the cost for redundancy and pension contributions when people left the organisation on top of their salary. So it produces a figure that's 2 or 3 times what their take-home pay would be. But certainly when, I'm trying to remember the name of the previous Cabinet Secretary, and it now escapes me, because we went through this debate under the previous government, what we found was that the equivalent roles in government locally and centrally at central government level were remunerated at around double the highest rate at local government level.
Colin?
I'm far from an expert on this, but I do think there's a question about MP pay and the Prime Minister's pay, only because I know we've seen so many instances of MPs taking second jobs or high-paid additional gigs, and it would be great to see an end to that and have our politicians focus solely on politics. And if they need to be paid more in order to do that, then that's a conversation that's probably worth having. You're not going to see me crying about the pay packet for the Prime Minister, especially because they tend to go on to be able to earn loads and loads of money off the back of that position. So
I think Liz Truss might be an exception to that particular rule.
even she's trying.
She's trying.
She was, in the US very recently giving talks on it. I wonder how much she was paid for that. So, but that exception aside, I think that is something that is worth considering.
I think Sir Chris Wormold was the previous cabinet secretary that you were referring to, and he did get a bumper payoff, didn't he?
Yeah.
But then again, that does tend to happen in local councils when their chief executives are made redundant or got rid of for whatever reason. They tend to then reappear somewhere else, a bit like in the health service.
Some of them do and some of them don't. But again, it comes down to that, are we comparing like with like? So saying this is the salary of an individual who works in central government. This is the total remuneration, which includes their salary for the year and all of their pension contributions and a redundancy payment reflecting a 30-year career at the point when they left the organisation, and saying those are the same things. They're clearly not.
Right, shall we have our fun question? Over the weekend, we had the amazing biodiversity news that the golden eagle could be reintroduced into England. Scotland is already lucky enough to have them. This is from Kai, by the way. What animal would the panel like to see introduced to their local areas? Tremendous opportunity to create enemies on this one. Poppy.
And I don't want to come across as a really cruel and unpleasant person.
But you're going to.
But all of last night, I was kept awake yet again by the foxes who are living directly below my flat in our little, maybe you could call it a garden, it's not very nice. And so I'm quite tempted to have any animal that's big and scary enough to scare the foxes away so I can actually get a proper night's sleep. So maybe we need to go back to real rewilding possibilities and introduce wolves to the streets of central London. Think about it.
Oh dear, because I know what's going to happen now. In the next hour of this programme, my text board there is going to be full of hate for you, Poppy. Luke.
I like wolves.
So I'm a farmer's son, and North Durham is a surprisingly rural constituency. We've got part of the North Pennine Park. There's farmland in between all the different former mining towns and villages. And I would not want to introduce any type of new wildlife into that environment without consulting my local farmers, because the problem is once you start bringing in predators that weren't there before, that can be very bad news for people that are trying to farm sheep.
Now, that wasn't a fun answer.
No, it was not. It was not a fun answer. It was a cop out, but I didn't want to give an answer that would then have people driving tractors up to my constituents.
Right, David.
I'm tempted to say that if golden eagles will eat foxes, I think my constituents would be pleased to have them. But hedgehogs is the answer. I know I live in a constituency. My constituency is very mixed. It's kind of suburban and rural. We've seen the depopulation of hedgehogs. I know they can be dangerous because they eat, for example, baby birds and eggs in ground nesting birds' nests. But nonetheless, the decline in the hedgehog population is a big issue. And I think I'd like to see more of those back. They don't really do much harm to the local environment, and I think my constituents would be pleased to see them.
Colin?
Going to give you a classically Canadian response and say the beaver. They're an amazing tool for rewilding.
They are being reintroduced.
They are indeed. Yeah, I think they've been reintroduced in West London.
Devon as well.
Yeah, and it's been incredibly successful. And I would just encourage everyone on the panel to read the book Rewilding, which just actually explains how amazing beavers are, and it's such an optimistic look, and maybe would give you some rebuttals against your farmers.
I haven't even made a FNAR comment about the word beaver. Chris has got his head in his hands after, because he thought he was going to get away with it.
I considered it.
I had to go there, didn't I? And from a drag artist as well. Thank you all very much indeed for coming on the show tonight. On tomorrow's panel, we'll be focusing on next month's Scottish parliamentary elections. I'll be joined by the SNP's leader in Westminster, Stephen Flynn, Scottish Labour MP Melanie Ward, the Conservative Shadow Scotland Secretary Andrew Barry, plus the stand-up comedian Susie McCabe. They'll all be with me from 8 o'clock tomorrow on Cross Question. Coming up in the next hour. Now, if Chris thinks he's got away with it with my beaver comment, let's talk about Spotted Dick in the next hour, shall we? Or even Jam Roly-Poly or Angel Delight, because the school children of tomorrow are going to be banned from consuming these marvellous English delicacies. Or should I say British? Because the government wants to regulate what food and sugary treats are set to be given on the menus for school dinners. Should parents be given the choice over what their kids eat at school, or should it be decided for them by the government? Your call's next.
On your radio, on the LBC app, And
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 9 o'clock, Donald Trump's warning Iranian ships approaching the US blockade of the Strait of Hormuz will be immediately eliminated. It came into force at around 3 p.m, although NATO allies, including Britain and France, are refusing to join it. The president's also claimed Iran has called the White House wanting a deal.
I can tell you that we've been called by the other side. They'd like to make a deal very badly, very badly.
What was the sticking point over? You said it was over nuclear.
It was over nuclear, very similar, yeah, very good. I guess you're listening. It's over the fact that they will never have a nuclear weapon. Iran, you marking it down? Iran will not have a nuclear weapon. We agreed to a lot of things, but they didn't agree to that. And I think they will agree to it. I'm almost sure of it.
The public inquiry into the Southport stabbings has found they could and should have been prevented. The parents of killer Axel Rudakabana have been criticised for withholding information from authorities, and agencies should have intervened more strongly when he was found to be carrying knives many times. The Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, told MPs that Axel Rudakabana's referrals were also treated individually.
They should have been seen as a cumulative and compounding risk. The perpetrator did not receive the correct interventions, and his autism diagnosis meant that professionals focused far too much on his vulnerability and far too little on the threat that he might pose to others.
4 people are under arrest after a 16-year-old boy was stabbed to death near a shopping centre in Peterborough. 2 are being held on suspicion of murder. Nearly 100 criminal investigations have begun during the last year into suspected rule-breaking by England's water companies. The Environment Agency says it's looked into issues like illegal sewage leaks and poorly maintained treatment facilities. The government says it shows that underperforming and polluting firms have nowhere to hide. And the Conservatives have condemned a move to potentially align the UK with the EU single market rules, without MPs being given a parliamentary vote on each piece of regulation. The government's reportedly planning to introduce a bill that would see us adopt single market regulations in areas like food and drink through secondary legislation. In the city, the FTSE 100's closed down 18 points at 10,503. The pound buys $1.35 and €1.15. LBC weather: showers easing tonight, patchy fog and frost forming in places, cloudy and windy in the southwest, a low of 1 degree. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Daryl Jackson.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Iain Dale.
Very good evening, 4 minutes past 9 on LBC. We all remember our school dinners, don't we, with varying degrees of affection, or indeed not affection. But I do remember the odd sort of nice thing that they used to dish out. I never liked those horrible sort of angel delight things that we used to have for pudding. In fact, why do we even have puddings necessarily in a school dinner? But I did like the jam roly-poly and sort of all of the things that I probably shouldn't like, which is probably partly why I've ended up as a type 2 diabetic. Now, fried foods, this is from the Telegraph, fried foods and sugary desserts are going to be banned from school dinners under a Labour crackdown to tackle Britain's childhood obesity crisis. Familiar canteen favourites such as chicken nuggets, fish and chips and puddings, including cake and custard, will be removed from menus. The change forms part of the first major overhaul of school food standards in more than a decade. The plans, scheduled to come into force in September 2027, will ban deep-fried foods entirely, while desserts will be heavily restricted and must contain at least 50% fruit. On Monday, Sir Keir Starmer insisted the new standards regime would be affordable for schools despite complaints from catering firms. Asked whether those tasked with delivering the crackdown could afford to do so, Sir Keir Starmer said, "I think they can. The breakfast clubs are really important. These are the breakfast clubs at primary schools where children get free breakfast, and it's half an hour, 45 minutes before school where parents can drop them off. For some children, that is a breakfast they might not otherwise have got. But all the evidence is, it's not rocket science, it's not surprising. Children who've had a decent breakfast are going to learn better." Well, that's fair enough, but What about the fact that schools are now going to be essentially dictated to as to what they can feed their children by diktat of central government, it seems? Well, this morning, Nick Ferrari spoke with Education Minister Olivia Blake about what these changes to school menus will involve.
This is the first update to these standards in a decade, and we want to bring them up to speed with the most recent nutritional evidence. That's really important. Parents are asking us to do it. 8 in 10 are really worried about the quality of school food, and we know that there are really serious health implications for our children. So 1 in 3 children are leaving primary school overweight or obese. Tooth decay is the leading cause of admission to hospital amongst younger children, and it has a big impact on the school day. So what we're doing with these standards are 3 simple things. We are reducing the amount of sugar that children can have in school. We're increasing the amount of fibre, and we're getting rid of some of the most unhealthy foods like deep fried foods. And this is, as I say, what parents are asking for. And it's really important that we do everything we can to support our children to be as healthy as they can be.
So what sort of lunches will be served up for our children?
Well, I think the first thing to say here is we want them to be familiar food.
Quite jaunty.
Spag bowl that I've mentioned, apple crumble that I've mentioned. These are things which children are used to eating, and it's possible to make them in a healthier way. So we want it to be familiar food, but just made more healthy. There's lots of different examples of the kinds of things that may be, but pizzas, paninis, those things are still okay, just not as much of them, not every day. I hear stories about children who have come to talk to me about the quality of school food. They say to me it's not good enough, it makes them feel tired in school, but they also tell me that actually a lot of their friends are going in and every day getting a brownie at break and a slice of pizza at lunch, and that's just not good enough. And when we all enjoy naughty food sometimes, but we shouldn't be having it all the time, and we want to get the balance right here with these standards, which is what I think we're doing.
I was looking forward to hearing Nick Ferrari's naughty food choices there, but we were deprived that pleasure. Well, Olivia Blake talks a good game, doesn't she? But let me put an opposite argument here, in that why does this have to be dictated by central government? Surely it should be up to the schools to decide what they feed their children. If the parents don't like it, they can make representations locally. I mean, nobody is going to really... I mean, are you really going to be able to email Bridget Phillipson at the Department of Education and say, I don't think this item should be on the menu for my school? That's ludicrous, isn't it? Isn't this just a little bit over the top? Now, I get that we have a problem with childhood obesity, but is this really the way to tackle it? 0345 6060 973. Naomi Duncan joins me, Chief Executive of the charity Chefs in Schools, which works to put professional chefs into schools in some of England's most deprived areas in order to transform food quality, food culture and food education. Naomi, very good evening. Thank you for joining us. What's your view of these plans?
Good evening. Thanks for inviting me on. And so I have to say, Chefs in Schools as an organisation, we work with hundreds of schools across the country, helping them to deliver food and food education in schools. And we're really excited about this. We think this is a long overdue opportunity to listen to what parents and young people have been asking for, which is for support and help to put better quality food into schools. And at the moment, we already have a set of school food standards that dictate the kind of food that can be served in schools. They're pretty out of date and they don't really represent current health and nutrition knowledge. This is a moment where governments recognise that they finally listen to what parents and what kids have been asking for, and so we think it's a brilliant opportunity. It's exciting.
Well, perhaps parents should be more targeted at doing parental things themselves and actually giving their children decent diets, teaching primary school age children how to brush their teeth, and then we might not have some of these problems.
I think parents have an incredibly tough job in today's world, and the food environment that many children are growing up in at the moment is so dominated by foods that are just ridiculously bad for us. And we have these incredibly unique opportunities in school where we have a completely protected food environment where we can put, only the food that we decide to put on. And Chefs in Schools, our focus is making that food delicious and fun. There's a complete myth that healthy food has to not taste good, and I would just strongly refute that. I would say in the schools that we work with, we put on tacos, burritos, pasta pots filled with sauce, sauce, jerk chicken, rice and peas, like all of these things that are kind of tasty and full of flavour. And what we'd like to see more of those going on school menus. And yes, maybe there's a bit less focus on the kind of the sugary desserts and the deep fried food, and pizza and so on, which are too often just a kind of lazy delivery of school food. We can do so much better. The people who work in school kitchens really, really care about the kids that they serve, and they want the opportunity to deliver great food. So personally, I think it's great, and I think that parents, who are often working their kind of legs off trying to work their jobs and get their kids in and out of school. I think it's a great opportunity for everyone.
Give me an example of how the current advice is out of date.
So, for example, it is still the norm in many schools to serve cake and custard every day. It is still the norm in many schools to have pizza on every single day. It's still the norm in too many schools to have basically a wall of beige at break time. And now, listen, I love pizza. I love fish and chips. I love all of these things. But there is an extent to which there needs to be like a variety of food on offer. If it's just pizza every single day, we're not just not feeding kids the health. I mean, pizza is fine in and of itself, but every single day, we're also denying kids the opportunity to experience so many different exciting food types. So I think we kind of really focused on things that are being banned and things are being taken away, but we see it as a massive opportunity to introduce new things, to get kids excited about trying new foods.
Well, we know kids don't like doing that, don't we? So that may be a bit of a challenge. But there is a flaw in this plan, as far as I can see. That I accept that you don't want children to eat the same thing every day, because if a child loves pizza, inevitably every lunchtime they're going to choose the pizza option. I get that. But there is a cost to this, isn't there? Because I don't know what the average cost of providing a school meal is, but I suspect it's pretty low per pupil per day. If you want to introduce all of these new sort of modern menus, that is going to cost money, isn't it? And I doubt whether Olivia Blake said to Nick Ferrari, and we're going to increase the school meals budget by £1 billion a year.
I listen, it is not an easy business feeding kids in school. And I know that because we do it in hundreds of schools. And I personally, it's been my career for 20 years. So it is tricky managing budgets. I will say, though, that variety doesn't and different kinds of foods don't have to cost more than what's already being served. So I said earlier about taco, you do a black bean taco, that's significantly less expensive than a slice of pizza covered in pepperoni. You do a nice dal with rice. There are ways of balancing your budget. I will say small schools are really struggling. They are struggling financially, and I would love to see more support for the smallest schools so that we could put more money into school food. But in the schools that we're working with, it's a lot of it is a question of economies of scale. If you have enough children, it's like any restaurant. If you have enough children coming through, eating, buying a meal, whether the government pays for it or parents pay for it, you can make the numbers add up. But yeah, I mean, it's not easy. You need creativity. You need chefs that are trained and that know how to turn raw ingredients into tasty food. And so Chefs in Schools have today launched a new programme of support for schools called the School Food Project. I would encourage anybody who feels dubious about how these things can be delivered, go to schoolfoodproject.org.uk, sign up, and look, over the coming months, we're going to release recipes, menus, training, support for schools to really help them make a success of these new ambitions as they've been laid out.
Now, I hope I'm not going to come across as being in any way xenophobic in asking this question, but all of the different foods that you've mentioned during the last 10 minutes, they've all been foreign foods. Now, I'm a great fan of most foreign foods. I love eating foreign foods, but shouldn't we be encouraging schools to provide good English fare?
I'm a Brit. I wouldn't say I'm English. I'm Scottish, Welsh, English. There's so much brilliant food from across the British Isles that is many centuries old. But we also have an incredibly rich British culture of food from around the world. This is a nation built on growing up. The annual treat, the only time I went to a restaurant as a kid, it was to the local Chinese restaurant. It's not as though kids in this country aren't interested and excited about trying different flavors. But yeah, 100% love the British classics. There's nothing wrong with a shepherd's pie. Admittedly, shepherd's pie isn't quite as popular as we might think it is in schools anymore. And earlier I heard you talking about things like spotted dick and jam roly-poly. And I really hate to break it to people, but they haven't featured on school menus for a really, really long time. And in fact, in pretty much any school that you walk into, if you were to say, I'll pick jam roly-poly as my example, if you were to say that to most children, they would have no idea. Most people under 40 would have no idea what that was.
Well, that's told me.
I'm sorry to say, Ian, but I mean myself as well. You know, I think that the opportunity to eat different foods is really exciting.
Final question. I mean, okay, let's accept that jam roly-poly and spotted dick are not going to be on the menus. But is it really too awful to have something that is a bit unhealthy once a week as a treat on a school dinner menu?
I think there's still plenty of opportunities to eat things that we would consider to be treats. Fish and chips baked in an oven is, in fact, take it to your home. How many people today have a deep fryer at home? We don't. We have air fryers on the counter. This really is, the commercial ovens in school kitchens are effectively giant air fryers. There's no reason that we can't still do fish and chips, sausage rolls, pizzas, all the stuff that all of us love so much. It's just a case of not having it every single day. Personally, I think that's a win.
Naomi, thank you very much indeed. No one can accuse Naomi of not being enthusiastic about her cause, can they? That's Naomi Duncan, Chief Executive of the charity Chefs in Schools. Well, really keen to hear what you make of this. I must admit, I didn't realise that jam roly-poly wasn't on the school dinner menus anymore. But I come back to my original point. Do you not think that it ought to be up to individual schools to decide what they feed their children? And that is the best way for parents to have a say, because no one is going to convince me that anyone in Whitehall is going to take the remotest bit of notice of what parents say. But your local school will, surely. Or am I being delusional here? 0345 6060 973. Do you recognise that we have a real problem with childhood obesity? Is this one way to attack it? It's 18 minutes past 9.
This is LBC.
Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and come on in to Classic FM Calm, LBC's soothing sister station. Find peace in the music with Classic FM Calm. Listen on Global Player or ask your smart speaker to play Classic FM Calm.
Hey, Harry. Hello, mate. Got any tips? Sometimes, pal, your best bet is not to bet at all. And BetVictor's app makes it really easy, simple and safe to do so. They've got lots of helpful features to help you manage your time and your spend online. But it also really helps that I can't find my blooming phone half the time. Yeah, that does really help. I don't even know where it is now. I can hear it, but I can't see it. Sandra?
Listen to Harry, and please gamble responsibly. 18 plus gambleaware.org.
Oh, Fiona's back at the Monkey Safari again. She's hooked on Toyota Service and Aftercare. In fact, it's so good, she'll find any excuse to come back. From replacement wipers to service and MOTs, our perks include free refreshments, quiet workspaces, courtesy cars, and a new warranty with every eligible service. Toyota Service and Aftercare. So good, you'll find any excuse to come back. Eligible services are available until the vehicle turns 10 years old or 100,000 miles. T's and C's apply.
Next contestant, your chosen subject is tax.
Said no one ever. HMRC doesn't expect you to be a tax expert, but knowing the basics will build your confidence and help you steer clear of any tax surprises. So check our simple explainers to fill your knowledge gaps, from business essentials to pensions and tax. Search HMRC Tax Confident to learn more.
Iain Dale on LBC.
20 past 9 here on LBC. We're talking about school dinners, believe it or not, because it appears the government wants to regulate what foods individual schools serve on school dinners. Now, they do this to an extent already. There is advice, but I think this advice is going to mean more than advice. Now, Stephen here has sent in a text which I think gets to the nub of the problem. He says, if these foods are causing obesity, why didn't they make kids decades ago obese who ate them? Now, that is a very telling point, because I don't think the problem necessarily is school dinners here. I think the problem is that kids nowadays do not get the exercise that we used to get as kids in the 60s, 70s and 80s. Because when we got home from school, we would go out and play in the streets. We'd play on bikes. We would get a lot of exercise. Effectively, we would have had a 2-hour workout after school every single day. At weekends, we would go out at 9 o'clock in the morning and come back when we thought dinner would be ready at sort of 5 or 6 o'clock. And our parents didn't worry about where we were. I mean, we used to come back most of the time. Now, that's not the case today, is it? Because parents have become so anxious about their children's safety, particularly in urban areas, that's never going to happen anymore. And instead, children sit in front of a screen, not a television screen, but their iPad or their phone. And they will sit there for hours doing absolutely no exercise whatsoever. Now that, if I was a government minister, instead of wasting my time on this sort of thing, I'd be thinking, how can we get kids to exercise more? That surely is the key. Or am I deluding myself? Reese is in Stockton-on-Tees. Hello, Reese.
Hello.
What would you like to say?
I think this policy that's been put forward is it's a great idea. I currently work in a primary school, and some of the meals that I see are just not fit for the children. Some of them are not healthy enough. Pizza's obviously one of them that's just been discussed. It does make a big difference to children when they're eating well. We see lots of examples of children who eat well and thrive in schools, and also children who don't eat well and struggle more with concentration, with fatigue. I'm the PE lead, so I see a lot of PE lessons within our school, and we're quite an affluent area, but it's still a problem. Children struggle to cope with the demands of a PE lesson, and what you were just saying is right. Children don't always exercise outside, so while there's a balance between diet and exercise, I do think this initiative is going to have a real positive impact on our children and their standards within our school, because it does have a big impact on behaviour too, which is a huge issue.
No, I can see that. But what about the parental responsibility here? Because again, I mean, it seems to me, and I'm going to exaggerate to make my point here, but it seems to me that in so many different areas, the state is taking over what used to be the responsibility of the parent. Where you work in a primary school, you will have kids who are not potty trained when they come into school, and it's therefore left to the teacher or the teaching assistant to deal with that. You'll have kids who don't know how to brush their teeth, so they've got to be taught how to brush their teeth by the teacher rather than the parent. I mean, I could go on, but how much of that do you see in your day-to-day work?
You're absolutely right. Teachers are expected to do a lot more. And I do think there is a lot of parental responsibility. I look back at how I grew up, and we had a lot of home cooking, but that was due to a lot of necessities. Now, it is true. A lot of parents come in and they're very open and honest, and they ask for support and they ask for help. I think schools are becoming an extra essential public service with a lot of things going on. And it is true that while parents should be responsible for the health of their children, teachers care deeply about the children that are in their class, and for the year that they're in there, they're seen as their own. I know the children that I've taught, I've not just gone home and thought about them, but the ones who maybe don't get fed, we've tried to give them fruit, toast, whatever we can do to provide that extra bit of support for them. It's imperative. And yes, parents should be looking at ways to give them healthier foods, but there is a struggle with the cost of living at the moment, and if the state can support that with 2 meals a day, whether it be free breakfast clubs and a healthy meal at dinner time, then that's going to go a long way to supporting our children in the future.
But as somebody says on the text here, it says healthy food is not expensive. I mean, it can be, but it doesn't have to be, does it?
No, it doesn't have to be, no. And I think that's a lot of education that needs to go on. I was listening to a lot of podcasts, and a lot of them suggest that England and the UK is quite an unhealthy nation for processed foods, which I think is true. And I think if a bit of education goes alongside the healthy eating, children become excited by that, and they put that family pressure on the parents to say that I've had this food at school today, can we have this at home? Yeah. And it builds that healthy culture. So it's a stepping stone to making children and parents and families overall healthier.
How long have you been a primary school teacher?
So I became a teacher in 2020, so that'll be 6 years now.
I mean, you're probably not long enough in the tooth to answer this question, but I was going to say, if you've been in the profession for, say, 10, 15, 20 years, have you noticed a difference in obesity in primary school-age children?
I have seen a difference in the overall health and fitness levels of children, because, like I said, as PE leader, I see a lot of PE lessons, and as I go back to my childhood, the standard of what's expected has lowered in a certain case of being able to allow all pupils to have that chance to thrive within the lessons. I think overall the pupils have become sort of less healthy. While it may not be in necessarily the weight category, it is noticeable.
So it's basic fitness rather than necessarily weight. And is that because of the amount of time they spend just looking at screens?
I believe it is. So while I do think technology does have a very important place for our children, because I think when they grow up, they'll need that screen time and they'll need to understand how to be safe online. I think there needs to be a balance, and it goes into the conversation we're having with this healthy eating. I think everything in moderation is fine. I don't think that we should just strip away all unhealthy foods, but I do think there needs to be an increase in healthier foods available for our pupils.
You talk a lot of common sense, Reece. Thank you very much indeed. Jimmy says, I totally understand that the government wants school meals to be healthier. However, one thing they're missing is increasing the daily allowance they're allowed to spend on school meals. And we all know the healthy foods come with a healthy cost. Not necessarily, Jimmy. So it's inevitable that budgets are going to be squeezed even more for already cash schools. I don't know what that last bit means, but I take your point generally. Let's go to another text here from Roxanne. Unfortunately, the individual agency in letting parents decide approach does not work. That's what we've been doing. Evidence shows that population-level approaches are the best way to improve public health, so it's great that this is being done. Well, I just don't agree with that at all. I always think that these things work much better from the bottom up rather than the top down. And I think it is up to individual schools and school leaders, head teachers essentially, to sell the message here rather than necessarily education ministers. This is from somebody who calls themselves Everything is God. Unfortunately, I'm British. Oh, well, that's a good start to a text, isn't it? Why would anyone say, unfortunately, I'm British? We live in a fantastic country. Dear, oh dear. I love British food, but 2 meat and 2 veg is not always doing it. Fish and chips are not always doing it, or roast. Dinner is not always worth doing it. There are so many fruits and vegetables out there from around the world. That's why people in foreign countries probably live a lot longer and healthier than we do in England. Well, what a load of old codswallop. Yes, I'm sure there are countries where people live longer, but there are many, many, many countries where they don't. And yes, of course, there are fantastic foods out there from around the world. And fine, if you want to double the amount that the state spends on school catering, then fabulous. We can bring in sort of something from Peru to experiment with. But these things always have a cost. And I don't think many people would think that was a good way of spending taxpayers' money. Or I don't think many parents would think that they would want to double the amount that they spend on their school dinners every day for that sort of thing. Sorry, but I have to say it. Right, news headlines in a moment. It's 9:30, and here they are with Daryl Jackson.
Donald Trump's warning Iranian ships approaching the US blockade of the Strait of Hormuz will be immediately eliminated. It came into force this afternoon, although NATO allies, including Britain and France, are refusing to join it. The public inquiry into the Southport stabbings has found they could and should have been prevented. The parents of killer Axel Rudakabana have been criticised for withholding information from authorities, and agencies should have intervened more strongly when he was found to be carrying knives many times. And nearly 100 criminal investigations have begun during the last year into suspected rule breaking by England's water companies. The Environment Agency says it's looked into issues like illegal sewage leaks and poorly maintained treatment facilities. LBC weather, showers easing tonight, patchy fog and frost forming in places, cloudy and windy in the southwest, a low of 1 degree.
This is LBC.
Next.
Hi, just these, thanks. Do you do cashback?
Just need to check you're not a robot first. New security policy.
Okay.
How many traffic lights can you see out the window?
Oh, 2?
No, that's wrong.
Right, well, obviously I'm not a robot.
That's what a robot would say.
What a load of malarkey. Smarty keeps things simple, like 80 gigabytes for £10. And on a rolling monthly SIM plan, you're free to leave any time. Less malarkey, more smarty. Search Smarty Mobile.
Young people today, can they really handle responsibility? Or are we just kidding ourselves?
Welcome to McDonald's. Some think young people can't manage. We disagree. That's why 1 in 3 McDonald's managers are under 25.
Hey, Kira. Hey, Belle. How are you? Right? Yeah, I'm good. It's busy out there, though.
Like Kira from South London. She's 23 and manages a team of 20.
Let's go.
Leadership, making it happen at McDonald's.
With up to £3,000 every year towards career growth at Amazon, I started in the warehouse, knowing I could train in things like coding or robotics. It turns my job into a career. So it means I can be who I want to be, even if I haven't quite decided who that is yet.
Amazon, opening doors with up to £3,000 every year towards career growth. Eligibility conditions about type and duration of employment apply.
Iain Dale, text 84850. This is LBC.
9:33 on LBC. Monza says, sorry, am I being thick? The lady on the telephone now, she's saying parents are having an incredibly tough time to tell their children to brush their teeth. For the love of God, honestly. Well, I always get slagged off when I talk about parental responsibility because people say, oh, you're not a parent. How can you have a view on this? Well, I can have a view on it because I have been parented. I have sisters who are parents. I see how they've parented their children. And if you don't think that it is your responsibility as a parent to feed your child properly, to give it a good balanced diet, if you don't think it is your responsibility to potty train your child before it goes to school, if you don't think that it is not your responsibility to teach your child to brush its teeth, then you shouldn't have had a child. It is as simple as that. And I'm not going to apologise for that. That is my honest view. I'm not trying to say it. I'm not saying it to whip up anybody. I think 95%, I would hope 99% of rational people would agree with me on that. It is not the state's responsibility to teach children to brush their teeth. It is not the state's responsibility to provide children with a healthy diet. That is the parental responsibility. And what part of that do some people not understand? We have enough state interference in our lives. We do not need more. Jerry's in Whitley Bay. Jerry, hi.
Good evening, Ian. You're a git. You nicked all my arguments.
Oh, dear. Sorry. Bye, then.
Right. But, yeah, hi. Kids and activity. You know, you and I are about the same age. When I was a kid, you know, if you weren't at school, you were outside after breakfast, your parents came hunting for you for lunch, they dragged you in for lunch, you went out and you played again all afternoon, and they sent a search party out at tea time, and they found you somewhere, and they dragged you back to eat. At school, my memory is it was steak pie, sponge pudding and custard, liver and kidney. All of them were high carbohydrate, high fat foods. And at school, I can remember maybe 2 kids who were fat.
Yeah.
And when I say fat, I'm probably looking back now and saying they were a bit tubby.
Oh, yeah, but Jerry, we're not allowed to use words like that anymore in case it offends people.
Exactly, yeah. How were they able to eat high carbohydrate, high fat foods and not be fat?
Very simple. They had lots of exercise.
Exactly. What do they not get today?
Lots of exercise.
Exactly. So we've got this mentality today of treating symptoms rather than the problem. And until we deal with the problem, which is kids are meant to be active, and we stop instilling them with a sort of culture that everybody out there is, for want of a better argument, going to do them harm, which was far more likely in the 1970s and 80s when we grew up. The difference is we talk about it a lot more today than we did then. But it was more active then than it is now.
Well, here's a suggestion, and this would cost money. If we think that it is the lack of exercise that is affecting children and allowing them to become fatter than they ought to be, why not, instead of having like two periods of sport every week, or maybe 4 if you're lucky, why not, at the end of every school day, instead of finishing at 3:30, finish at 4:30? And the entire school has to do some sort of exercise, some sort of sport or exercise activity between 3:30 and 4:30. Now, you'd obviously have to have teachers to do that. You'd have to pay them to do it. But I think that would have far more effect on children's physical health than some diktat from Whitehall about what they're allowed to eat or not.
That is certainly one solution, but the overriding solution is we're constantly looking for institutional answers to what are fundamentally parental problems.
Yeah.
You just named them. We're sending kids to school that are in nappies. That never happened in our day.
No, absolutely right. I mean, we are sounding like old gits, Jerry. You do realise
well, yeah, we are.
But that's because we are.
Yeah, well, we are. But who are the people who are living longest today? They are people who were born in the 1930s, 1940s, and 1950s. They were brought up on high-fat, high-cholesterol diets, and they're living the longest. We've really got to rethink the whole world here, because we're going down a protectionist position where we're unable. We're protecting children into a bubble to a point where we're saying, well, don't go to work because work might be dangerous. Stay at home.
Mm.
And that is pervasive right across the political spectrum now, almost entirely. That we know what works because we've seen what worked in the past, and we're throwing that under a bus.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Jerry. Thank you very much. Jen says, so glad you've said this. Diet isn't an issue. Exercise is. Remove the screens. In the 80s, we had 3 TV channels. If we were lucky, we made our own entertainment, and it was never sat on the sofa. Absolutely right. David's in Bayswater. Hello, David.
Hi, Ian. This is so serendipitous because I've just been doing a study of obesity in kids. Yeah. So, first point I wanted to make was that I think it's not a simple thing. It's one factor. It's a multifactorial thing. But to cut to the chase, for example, the statistics show that 22% of 10 to 11-year-olds are obese, and another 13% are overweight. So it's a pretty serious problem.
And what's the definition of obese?
I can't give you the technical. With kids, you measure it. You use the BMI thing as well, but you have to also match it with age. It's a bit complicated, but it's on the ONS. It's established that they are obese, and So that's the first thing. I think we just can't depend on a significant minority of parents to feed their kids healthily because they're not well informed or they have stress in their lives and they just do not feed their...
My sympathy knows no bounds.
But we don't. The kids are the victims. We must be sympathetic to them, Iain, because they can't take responsibility for.
Well, they shouldn't have had them in the first place, then, should they?
Yes, but they're alive, so we have to try and make them healthy healthy members of society, so they can be producing and be good for society. Would you agree with that, Iain? Well, we don't want them to become obese adults and then not being able to work.
You don't. But the fact is that people seem to think having a child now is a right.
No, I agree. But it doesn't mean we can't be kind to the kids and try and help.
Of course.
I don't think it should get rid of that. So basically, I think that it is right. It's a public health issue because obesity is costing this country. We're the second most overweight country in Europe, or even, I don't know if we're the most overweight. So
I think we're behind Malta.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right, Malta. And so it's costing us billions. It says 11 billion. That's one of the figures quoted. But I think it's even more if you look at the long-term effects, because many obese kids become obese adults with all the concomitant problems. So it's worth investing the money now in healthy foods so that later on we don't have these huge problems when they become adults. It's just a compassionate thing to do to help our kids to be more healthy. And I think exercise is part of it, as you said. But I think the consumption. There's so many fast food outlets now, and there's a culture of fast food in this country now. Many parents resort to it instead of cooking.
I mean,
more so than in your time which
absolutely
you referred to
right.
earlier.
And that's the point that many people are making on the text, saying, look, in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, we might have had fish and chips once a week or whatever, but there weren't the takeaway outlets. Having a takeaway was a real treat. I mean, I can remember when Burger King first started, and I mean, having a Burger King was seen as the biggest treat of all. And yet nowadays, so many parents, and I get the point about busy lives, and with two parents working, it's very different to how it used to be. Yeah. But you can't live on takeaways, can you?
No, but Iain, I also think the food culture, really, to produce a healthy meal, it could take just like 20 minutes, but they just don't have the knowledge, the parents, and maybe they're not even interested, some of them. I don't want to go around blaming people, but I do think some parents need to make more of an effort to think about the food that they give to their kids. It's not fair on the kids to let them become obese, I
have good news. We're no longer number 2 most obese country in Europe. Good. Malta is ahead of us, but and I find this one quite difficult to believe. Yeah, Turkey is the first.
Wow!
Because I can't say that I've ever seen a fat Turk.
Well, maybe you need to go to Turkey. But Iain, just one or two more points, sorry, because I know you're busy. You know what? They're even thinking now of introducing Manjaro for kids with type 2 obesity, with type 2 diabetes, because it's such a serious problem now. And they've already done it in the US, and now they're thinking about bringing it here. The European Health Commission has already said it's okay for Europe, so they're going to try and bring it here, I think. So it's really such a serious problem. That's why it's great that the government are intervening. You can't depend on schools to bring the right foods in, as that guy referred to. Look at the food that his school was offering. You need an initiative from the government to set the country in the right course. To provide,
David, thank you very much indeed. I've lost the text here now, so I can't read it out, but somebody was having a right old go at me for saying, well, it's all very well for you. You're on Manjaro, so how can you pontificate on things like this? Well, it's a fair point, but when I was a child, there wasn't an ounce of fat on me until 1976, when I was 13, and went on a school visit to the Soviet Union and got a terrible form of food poisoning. And ever since then, I just have to look at a chocolate bar and I put on a pound. And that's followed me throughout my life. But the Manjaro is not actually to lose weight, even though I have lost a stone, but it is actually to help control the blood sugar levels. And it has really helped in that. So all's well that ends well, sort of. More of your calls to come on, should the government be dictating to schools what's on their school dinner menu? Or do you think, like me, it's up to parents to make their representations to their local school if they think that this is not the right thing to do? It's 9:45.
Coming up at 10 on LBC, James Hansen.
At 12, how can any person of faith support Donald Trump? At 11, if farmers go ahead with fuel protests, will you support them? But first, is it fair to expect parents to turn in their own children?
James Hansen at 10. Listen on our free Global Player app or the LBC app.
Tesco Insurance are driving down the cost of motoring with 10% off car insurance. Take out a car insurance policy before the 15th of May 2026 and you'll get 10% off with club card prices. We offer a range of cover options, so you can choose the one that's right for you. Save 10% when you buy or renew a car policy with Tesco Insurance. Search Tesco Car Insurance and get a quote direct today. Club card required. Excludes add-ons. T's and C's apply.
Selling your car can be super simple if you choose We Buy Any Car instead of selling privately. We Buy Any Car can get it sorted in under an hour, so no weekends watching randoms inspect your car to not even buy it. If only they could make finding where you park simpler. Was it floor 2 or 3? I swear I parked here. Where is it? We Buy Any Car. Selling made simple. To get a quote in 30 seconds, enter your reg number now at webuyanycar.com.
At Amazon, over 50% of deliveries now come with less packaging or with no added packaging at all. It's a difference you'll notice on your doorstep, where you chat with friends, where your neighbour's daughter practices guitar, and where we deliver your new noise-cancelling headphones in the manufacturer's packaging. Ah, much better. Reduced packaging from Amazon. We're delivering change where it matters, on your doorstep. Based on 2025 Amazon packaging data across the UK and EU.
Hi, I'm Sava, founder of Cool U, the daddy of air conditioning. For over 15 years, Cool U have specialised in installing our fully internal aircon systems throughout London, with no mess, no fuss, and no external condenser. And from April the 10th to the 19th, come and meet me and the team at the Ideal Home Show, London Olympia. Cool U for a cool, comfortable home.
Iain Dale on LBC.
9:48 on LBC. Vidal says, I recently was a guest at an outstanding London school. A lot of the students were from low-income families, so we can imagine their school meal was their main meal of the day. For dinner, they were given tasteless mac cheese and a dead lettuce salad. That was it. No vegetables, no meat. No dessert. I couldn't believe it when compared to what I had at school. Full 5-a-day meal plus cake and custard every day. We've gone backwards at 100 miles an hour. Phil is a first-time caller. He's phoning from Sarkau in southern Thailand. How exotic. Hello, Phil.
Good evening, Ian. What a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you. I have to get up at 1 o'clock in the morning to listen to you every time, but I do, and I don't mind.
Well, that's very good. What's that noise in the background?
The cities, I'm afraid I can't stop that, but my home is a farm.
Right. Okay, what would you like to contribute to the discussion?
I just wanted to say to you that I couldn't agree with you more about people who can't see their kids. I'm sorry, I can't control the ticket. And they can't train them to potty train or anything like that. And it just makes me so angry to think, and I totally agree with you, if you can't do that, the basics of bringing up a child, don't have them. It's as simple as that. It's cruel if you do that.
Yeah, I agree. But once you've had them, we've obviously got to help children who are maybe in a difficult position with parents that don't really know how to parent, haven't we?
I couldn't agree with you. But, you know, it just makes me... I mean, I'm an outsider looking in, and I don't even know if I should have an opinion, really. But I'm 70 years old now. My daughter's 40. And, you know, and when we brought her up, me and my wife, unfortunately, when we brought her up, we taught her everything. We've done everything right. Yeah. We bought the school uniform. We've done everything. We've done everything we could. We didn't have a lot of money. I was a bricklayer, and we didn't have a lot of money. And But we've done our best. We've done everything we could. We gave her lovely food. We potty trained her. We taught her how to dress nicely. Now she's a beautiful young lady. She's an accountant with the Wildlife Fund, and she's just an amazing girl. But we put love and care into bringing her up. But if you can't feed your child a couple of slices of toast and a bowl of cornflakes in the morning, what kind of parent are you?
Well, it's a question that every parent needs to answer, really, isn't it? Now, we did mention the dessert spotted dick on the programme earlier. Chris has texted in to say, that sounds... No, I can't say it. Oh, yes, I will. That sounds like an enormous cock in the background. Surely there's a joke in that. Can you get it to crow again?
No, I can't control them. They've got a mind of their own at this time in the morning. Because
Thank God there's only 8 minutes left in the programme. I think I'm about to be taken off the air. James Hansen might have to start a little early if he is not careful. Phil, thank you very much indeed. Very entertaining. Ella is in... Oh, what? Did you have something else you wanted to say?
I just wanted to thank you. It's such a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you.
And you. Thank you very much, Phil. Sorry that was a bit muffled, but it is all the way from Thailand. Now, although the cockerel was very, very clear, wasn't he? Ella is a first-time caller in Mortlake. Ella, get us back on an even keel, please.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Not at all.
First time. I'm nervous, but I do try to just come across my message. I've got a 15-year-old daughter. I'm a single mom. Being healthy food was always my priority. As teenager, I had the issue of a bit of overweight, but it was a balance of, and I found out when I was a teenager, balance of good food and exercise. And I have to say that nowadays, my daughter's seeing her is being at school all day, studying all day, homework after school, and not much chance to exercise. And I cannot control what she eats. She has a school meal provided, lunch provided at school, and even she told me it's not very healthy, and she doesn't like it. But I do have a control over what she eats after school, and I do offer her take something with her to school if she doesn't like something. So we have healthy meals. I try my best to have good healthy meals, balanced meals. And then also I notice that, she sits all day long, studying all day long. I notice her posture is going it's not perfect. And so I did encourage her to take some exercises. So since she was doing a bit of tennis, of ballet, swimming, I think she lost a little bit, I can see there's more of good posture, and she looks healthy and slim.
Well, you've come up with an interesting idea there, because maybe, just maybe, kids are getting too much homework to do at the moment. So they then don't have time to go out. We never had homework at primary school at all.
She's now doing next year GCSE, and now actually she's studying. She came from school and she's been studying all Saturday because she wanted to be off on Sunday. Now she's been studying all evening, sitting, and so really I think there's too much homework, and children need to have exercise. I do encourage her after school to go to the park. In my old days, go to the park, have a run, with friends. But obviously her friends go home, she does not want to go out, so it's not really kind of feasible to do that. But I do think parents should encourage children to do something else, do exercises. Like if I go for exercise, I encourage her to come with me. Or even now recently she has joined a gym.
Well, Ella, you're an inspiration. Thank you for your first-time call. Make sure you call in again. Jimmy says, I totally understand that the government wants school meals to be healthier. However, one thing they're missing is No, we've already done that one. Let's go to Amanda in Dublin. Hello, Amanda.
Hiya. Hello.
Hi.
I found this really interesting. There was a study done, we heard about it in Ireland, in Japan. They have brought in across the whole of Japan that schools have to do nutritionally balanced, fresh and local, no junk food, and they have this thing called shokiyu, which is food education. So it's basically lunch is part of the curriculum, and students learn about nutrition and sustainability. There's student responsibility where they're made to kind of help set out the tables and clear up after lunch and things like that. And it encourages teamwork and gratitude. And they have really healthy meals that are kind of locally sourced. They have the right amount of protein and carbohydrates, and they have vegetable side dishes, and they have milk to drink, and they have a dessert. If that's a dessert, it's like fruit or jelly, that kind of thing. And they found that in schools, there's less than 4% child obesity in the schools. But the thing is, that carries on into the rest of the population. So the long-term health effects of lifestyle-related illnesses, they don't really have in Japan. It's amazing. They have, so there's not that kind of, the health service isn't overburdened with a load of illnesses that are lifestyle illnesses. It doesn't mean that they're totally avoidable, but something like diabetes, if you could do something in schools and have that go all the way up through to adulthood, then how many people would need to be treated with Mounjaro or those kind of things?
I was about to say, it's very rare that you see a fat Japanese person, and then I instantly thought, yeah, but they're sumo wrestlers.
Yeah, but the other thing is, I mean, we didn't have school meals here in Ireland from when my kids were going through primary school. They brought in a packed lunch. They're now bringing in school meals. They're making them healthy, and I'm on the board of management for a school, so we have to find out about what's happening with these school meals, and they're healthy, and the kids absolutely love them. I was very sceptical because I grew up on kind of shepherd's pies and custard that was like an inch thick, with the skin. And I thought that the kids would hate it. But they're healthy food and the kids absolutely love it. And they bring their lunch boxes home, what's left, so the parents can inspect it. And they're going, that's actually really good. So, I mean, it does work. If you start from the bottom up, it works.
Well, Amanda, thank you very much for that. I often thought that maybe we should start Leading Ireland's conversation, but then I think the acronym doesn't really work, does it? Final text here. The problem is food waste. The amount of food waste in schools is a scandal. The problem is not school budgets, it's waste, and it's fussy kids where schools and parents pander to the kids too much. Well, thank you for all of your calls and messages this evening. I'll be back tomorrow from 7. We have a new episode of the Where Politics Meets History podcast out at 1 a.m. With me and Tessa Dunlop, and we talk about all sorts of things, including why is it that wars are always started by men? That's Tessa saying that, not me. If you missed any of this evening's show, you can listen back on our free Global Player app or the LBC app, where you can stay up to date with all the latest news, videos and opinion. Download the official LBC app for free from your app store now. Coming up at 1 on LBC, it's James Max. But first, in for Ben Kentish, here's James Hansen.
Thank you, Ian. Good evening. Coming up, Donald Trump says Pope Leo wouldn't be in the Vatican without him after the pontiff condemned these protests. Will you support